Hey, good. All right, good morning. I call today's meeting to order. I would request that you all rise and state the pledge with me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. I got it. Was there a roll in that envelope? Was there? I don't think there was. Okay, we'll have to do it at the end of the meeting. All right. Is there any additions or changes to the agenda?
There is just one. We would like to add 12F.
Okay.
Move the agenda as amended.
Support.
All right, so I got a motion and support. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, agendas. All right, moving on to number 5, approval of the minutes from February 11th meeting.
Sure. We need a correction to the attendance record.
Okay?
Jane Whitaker can't be in two places at one time.
Yep. Okay. All right, so show is amended.
Support.
All right. All Well, I thank you there. All right, then, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we're on to number 6, limited public comment. If you have a public comment, please come up to the podium. Please keep it within 3 minutes. Do we have any of the public like to make a comment? All right, seeing no movement, we'll move on to agency reporting. First up, and only up, is the Health Department. Rebecca, it's good to see you, and it's your show.
We can keep it on that.
I'm the health officer over at the health department. So I think I've met most of you. I don't think you and I have met yet, but happy to be here. So I prepared just a little presentation for you today, overview of what's happening at the health department and high-level overview as a reminder of what we're working on. So this first slide will give you a visual of the things that we do on the day-to-day at the health department, things like food and restaurant inspections, well permitting, CD, so communicable disease, tracking and reporting, lead levels for kiddos reporting, and WIC is one of our biggest programs at the health department. So let's start with environmental health. One of the biggest overviews there is that we have 3 new sanitarians that have started since January, 2 on the community services team and 1 on the water protection team. And as of yesterday, I'm happy to report we have filled the water protection supervisor role, which is a very technical role in the health department. Very difficult to find an appropriate staff member for, but we have found him. So we're really excited about that. We have 2 current openings. That's going to be the community services team supervisor. Her name is Jody Pessel. After 26 years, Jody has decided to retire in April. So we're really excited for her and doing some looking for her replacement. We're also going to be looking to hire an intern for the summer. Program updates are that we are doing some beach monitoring that will help us sample Fox Memorial Park and Crandall Lake 2 times a week this summer to keep an eye out for any harmful E. coli levels or harmful algal blooms. So if we have to shut down either of those waterways, we certainly can. Our staff will continue to collect mosquitoes and ticks throughout the summer. We'll keep an eye on any triple E or tick-borne illness. And then annual food licensing is coming up in April, so we're just getting ready for a real busy season in EH. We did have a rabies positive this year in February in Eaton County. So this is just a reminder that if you have a bat in your home, we have some videos on our website about how to capture it alive. We would like for you to bring it to us alive. And if you believe that anyone in your home or your pets have been bitten by the bat or interacted with the bat, even more important that we get some testing done. Since October 1st, we have done 167 well and septic permits, which is right in line with what we saw this time last year, which was 175. We did 183 restaurant inspections, which is lower than last year, but we did have a vacancy and, well, not a vacancy, I'm sorry, she was on maternity leave. So we had a staff member on maternity leave and we had 2 staff members resign. So we were pretty low staffed on that team for a minute, but we're back to full staff now. So we'll see those numbers pick up as well. Any questions on environmental health before I move on? Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned you're monitoring twice a week at Crandall. What about Fox Park? I like to tell people.
Yes, Fox Park as well,
Okay, how often do you test that?
2 times a week.
Oh, you do?
Yep.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Rebecca. What constitutes the need for a permit for well and septic?
Sure. So quite a few different things. First and foremost, we see as a new build. If you are building a home and you need to put in a septic system or a well, then of course we're going to go out and look at the soil, find the best place for the septic and the drain field, and then well drillers. We work with well drillers quite a bit, so we can find a good spot for the well and make sure that the water is clean. We test for nitrates and bacteria in residential wells.
So this is brought about by the homeowner or the contractor then?
Yes, yep. The other time that we really would get involved is if the septic is failing. So if you have a failing septic system or you need a replacement system, then we certainly will help out with that too. But again, homeowner.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
All right, great. So we'll move on to the clinic side of things now. We have a hearing and vision tech who after 10 years is also retiring soon. So we will be hiring for that position. Other than that, we have 1 brand new clinic assistant and that staff will be fully staffed, which is great. So we have ongoing monitoring for communicable disease and seasonal respiratory illnesses. We have seen an increase in whooping cough cases locally in recent years, and we are, of course, tracking measles nationally. This is still a problem, so we're keeping a close eye on it for our communities. We also, within the PCH division, so personal and community health, we keep track of foodborne illnesses. So if they're reported to our EH division, then PCH takes over as the investigators. And then rabies exposure also has that same type of collaboration in-house. So if you call EH with a rabies potential exposure, then our community health team will help you out there. So 2 of our big programs, Baby Cafe and WIC. Baby Cafe is moving to every other week due to low turnout, and then the opposite weeks will be virtual. So the 1st and the 3rd week of the month will be in person at Alive. The 2nd and the 4th will be virtual. So we're hoping to increase some participation in that program. With our WIC, we are really excited that we are starting some in-person free classes for pregnant and breastfeeding people and new parents. So you can come to our office on the 1st Thursday of each month from 1 to 2 and get some breastfeeding support if needed. So I apologize that. Any questions about the clinic before we move on? Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Okay, I don't know where this was brought up, because I typically don't get an update, but I have asked Colette different times on the dental clinic, and I'm not hearing anything of concern. except for one, which I'll give you, and you can pass on to whoever, because I think you go to some group of people that oversee the dental clinic. But I started like over a year ago getting texts from my dentist or my doctors or whatever, and you had to tell them yes, or they gave away your appointment. I learned it the hard way. So somebody just brought that up to me, that the dental clinic also wants people to confirm their appointments, and if they don't, they will take them off of the roster for that day, and then they have to reschedule. And their way to say yes isn't by text message, you know what I mean, to confirm that you're coming. You have to call in to tell them yes. And that's, I'm not sure that the people understand that. And the other comment was it's kind of hard at times to get a hold of an actual person by calling into the dental clinic. So you could pass that off to whoever's doing it. And like I said, my dentist's office aren't connected to Sparrow or anything. So I know it's in the system, and they could probably replicate that. Because that was a concern brought to me, and we want to make sure. And I know that they're hopefully running full over there. Are you fully staffed at the dental clinic now? You were down one dentist over there last time Colette spoke, when I asked her questions when she came here.
Yeah, I am not prepared to answer questions about the dental clinic today.
Okay.
I don't oversee the dental clinic, but I certainly can have somebody reach out. And maybe it would be a good idea to have
talks to us on that?
MCDC come to one of these meetings so that you could ask.
Yes,
questions.
I would appreciate,
Yeah,
just because I was here when it was a concept on paper
sure.
that far back.
Yeah.
So because I know that there's a great need
Yeah,
for affordable dental services.
sure.
It even talks about it on TV by your policy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's not the health department.
Yeah, and I think it's because, and I don't believe we fund operations there. So typically, what you get reported here are agencies that receive money and have a direct relationship with the county. So if we were going to start adding additional agencies to come and present, that would be the deviation. That's why you don't hear from them. Yeah, I believe they're their own agency. They're their own entity with their own funding sources and.
They rent.
Correct, yeah. Mhm. For them to operate? I can look into that, I don't know, off the top of my head. Oh, you mean the building as an asset? Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I don't believe we hold like a liability bond for them, yeah. But I can double check. And if the board, if this body would like us to add them, then I think you guys could probably make a motion and discuss, otherwise. Yeah, or I could ask them to give one in writing and we could have it like a communication too, whatever the committee wants.
All right, next, Rebecca?
Sure. So the next division that the health department operates is the planning, promotion, and evaluation. So this is going to be where a lot of education and data that you see publicly comes from. So right now we are excited that Healthy Capital County's Community Needs Assessment and Community Health Improvement Plan are wrapping up, and the next one will be in spring of 2028. There is a link in your packets, so if you want to take a look at those documents, you certainly can. One of the biggest programs we operate is called OD2A. It's Overdose to Action. This is a CDC grant, and it provides linkage to care, harm reduction support, and clinical best practice activities in Berry and Eaton counties. So recently, we released a request for proposals. So we are hoping to get some proposals back for projects that people are looking to do in the community with an anticipated start date of May 1st. And then finally, the medical marijuana grant activities. This will segue nicely into the next topic on your agenda. So the medical marijuana grants is something that we are the subcontractors for Eaton County. So the money comes from the state to the county. The county then passes that money on to us in past practice. That money is used for education and prevention efforts here in the county. We do a lot of monitoring and data collection, tons of community outreach and partnership with different multimedia organizations, and we distribute lock boxes and promote safe storage. We also spend a lot of time talking to middle schoolers, high schoolers, and parents about the harmful effects of marijuana, long-term effects, and that generally segues nicely into talks about vaping and tobacco use. So if you have any questions about that, happy to answer them. Not sure if I'm going to get ahead of myself by talking about 8A. You okay with that, Ben? Yeah. Okay. So the next, so 8A, the reason that that is on your agenda today is that this grant has a cap at 10% indirect for the county. That goes against the 15% that you all passed last year as an administration fee. So in order to continue this work, what we're here asking for today is that you accept the 10% instead of the 15% that is your standard practice. So that's a little ahead of where we're at right now.
So the total grant award for this grant is $41,046. It's a calculation that you have to do for all of the subcontractor and indirect costs. So 10% of the 41,046 would be roughly $3,731.
And at this junction, it's a policy decision, so you'd be moving the policy, it would go to Ways, and then an override of that would require a 2/3 majority of the full Board of Commissioners next Wednesday. So just a perspective, this won't be the last time you all have to vote on it.
Commissioner Toomey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just really quick, so the last slide here, the medical marijuana grant activities, this is kind of a good description of what that money funds. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know we did lock boxes for safe storage of marijuana and stuff. I guess my other thing, more of a comment on I'll be in support of the fee exception request. I just wanted to say, generally, I feel like we spend more time waiving this policy than, administering it as written. So I don't know if we need to look at that fee and possibly change how we do it, or the level that it's at that 15% seems to be like we have to make an exception to it a lot. So that's just more of a comment on how that policy is, as it's been implemented, how it's actually having to be adjusted all the time. So that could just be a longer term
It's
thing.
fair. I mean, we definitely have some notes on that policy that we wanted to move forward with. But if you did a language like 15% or the most allowable under the grant, there'd be the possibility that we would be taking on grants without having the discussion where you all openly acknowledge we get that we won't be able to do the 15. But that's really a decision for the board to make. We also talked about trying to structure it to where you can come in and say, this is administration's recommendation, and you all can adopt that as opposed to having to do an override. And then administration can filter out any restrictions the grant might have, like this. So, yeah.
Commissioner Drosch?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What is the risk to this grant if we don't change our policy from 15% to 10%?
We can't apply for the grant. I mean,
We can't apply.
We could apply, but we will be out 5% guaranteed. So it would be on the health department to subsidize 5% out of, I would imagine, their general fund if we were going to do it. We just haven't used the policy like that before. And I'm not sure it's a $40,000 grant, so at $3,700, that'd be asking the health department to come up with like another $1,500 to fund this. So we have not had that discussion, but I would feel like if that was the appetite, we probably should just not apply, and that money can stay with the state, and maybe they'll disperse it to another community that can take it on.
All right, thank you.
Move the resolution.
I got a motion? You got a question too, or just a support? Okay, I got a motion and support on the floor of 8B, the grant policy administration fee going down to 10.
I'm not going to support it. I have a question when we're ready for that.
Okay, open up for discussion. Go ahead.
All right. Given what we just spoke of, should we postpone this grant until we've had a chance to discuss the possibility of modifying our administration fee policy?
Edmund?
So timing-wise, we had to submit to maintain our ability to be eligible for it. So at this junction, it's approving whether or not we accept an award or not. My apologies. So this is not a pre-approval, it's, we applied, this is what it shook out to at the end, and we're just deciding whether we want to accept the money.
Okay, my concern is not in setting precedent that we have to backtrack now and take a look at some of our previous requests. So that's my concern. I'll leave that up to everybody else to decide what they want to do, or give a good argument as to what we're going to do next.
Yes, Commissioner.
Ben, do you think that we need to talk about changing that policy at Ways and Means?
Yeah, I would say not this month, but yes. So I mean, we can add that as like an administrative priority to get that. There are two policies that really need to happen pretty quickly. The fund balance policy, we did establish that fund balance policy, but we have to elect if there's a surplus beyond that 10% how it's used. We had talked about for MERS and our long-term liability, paying down that so that we make it easier to do business with Eaton County. That policy needs to move within the next couple months. We could add this to it as well. That will probably delay purchasing, which is a discussion for Ways and Means, but yeah, we could just pick and choose our priorities and shuffle around the best we can.
So Ben, does that do anything to her having the money? Like, does she have a timeline that she has to accept it then by?
Yeah, I think if we don't move on this grant this cycle, like as in today, Ways and full board, then we're essentially not accepting the money and sending it back to the state.
Because this is for like lock boxes and community outreach things.
Yeah, and the one thing I will say is we built the override into that policy because we knew there were going to be situations like this. That's what it was intended for. So from an administrative standpoint, so you know, I don't see us having to dip into the administrative override as a problem. That's functionally why we put it there, because every grant is different. Some grants don't even allow a percentage. It's all indirect expenses. So it's space, utilities, phones, right? So structurally, that's why we put that in there. Can we streamline it so that we don't have this discussion every other month? Because there's a lot of grant activity that takes place. Absolutely. But originally, that's why we put that provision in there, so that you could all make a value call on a case-by-case basis.
So today, when you call for the vote, then we can go ahead and allow her to accept the check. Am I
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, it would
it's
be here to Ways and then to the full board, and it's a reimbursement process. So yes, correct. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Toomey and then Whitaker.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify quickly that I was just more expressing my overall dissatisfaction with how that policy shook out. I can't remember if I was for or against it at the time, but yeah, I'm in support of passing this exception today, and that would allow them to move forward. But it's just more so we have this conversation a lot about needing to do these exceptions, and I think I just wanted that 15% to be lower. So that's all I was trying to express. I don't think we need to do it imminently. I know that this process works for right now of manually overriding. I was just saying long term, I think that's something I want to look at in the months or whatever. I know we have other things to do, so.
Commissioner Whitaker?
So, Rebecca, is this something that the health department could afford, the other 5%?
tough question. So I think that the projects that this grant supports are worth reassessing the current budget to make sure that we continue these programs. They're really, really valuable to our community, but that will mean redoing the budget to sacrifice other things somewhere else. As the budget stands today, no, I don't have an additional 5% to pay back to the county for this, unfortunately.
I asked that because, you know, we have a policy. We're trying to figure out how well it works. And so if we don't enforce it, to find out what impact that has. I mean, I know that we've been changing it, but if we're gonna have a policy that helps contribute to our long-term sustainability, and we keep changing it because it doesn't work for the community, then we have to, it's a bigger picture to me than just, you know, the $3,700 or $1,500.
Yeah, and you know, from an internal standpoint, so not that the health department is an agency within, but like if we're doing admin on a grant that was 15%, you know, like a portion of that is gonna support the people doing the work, right? So it's not all like that rests within the controller's office by any means. So I think in that sense, because we're not, all we're doing is helping with the accounting and the reporting to the state as the recipient and then a sub-recipient award. So in that sense, you know, keep in mind, if they were a department, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion because, you know, we'd already be sustaining at least a third of that through running the program itself. I think in the long run, and maybe that's what it is we have a work session, and I don't know if that's a work group that comes back with recommendations, but I mean, those are valued decisions. Like, is a human services impact that does this much for the community valuable enough that we are good at running it at 10%, right? Like that's generally, if you all have agreement on that, then yeah, you don't have to talk about it every time. You could have that set up in advance, but those would be decisions we would need to work into an updated policy. And you would all need to weigh in on, because you'd be relinquishing your right to evaluate them on a case-by-case basis. You know, for the fire training center, we did 3%. For the $5 million for the Bank County drain, we didn't take any admin because we were trying to get as much relief to homeowners in that district, right? So we have moved back and forth depending on that moment of what was best for the community, like you were talking about, Jane. So it's just food for thought, you know. The case-by-case allows you to assess each individual one, and we can continue the discussions at Ways and then do a spin-off work group if that's the best way to proceed.
Ben, when we did put that policy in place, we didn't add a clause in there to where we took the admin recommendation or asked as a requirement, did we? Well, since,
Oh, I see what you mean. As in if administration is like, we think we can do it for this.
yes, because
Yeah,
depending on maybe the size of the grant, or in this case, you know, like, we're basically a pass-through, right?
right.
So the work amount, you know, like, it may not take 15%, it may take 3% or whatever.
Yeah,
We didn't establish that when we established the policy.
you're correct.
Saying, hey, there's some flexibility, and we want admin, because they're the ones performing the duties, to weigh in on that percentage.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And honestly, that has come up a few times where you're looking at a grant and you're like, the intensity of administrative focus required for it is less than another one where if we're responsible for payroll, for labor, for procurement, and for managing an operation, 15 is right in line with like, yeah, it takes a lot to run this. If it's like a pass-through, yeah, and then even within that, so I like the idea of the tiered approach, which I think we had discussed at one time, was having like based on an estimate of staff time to manage it. Admin could say, we believe that this would be an appropriate administrative fee based on our estimate of what it's gonna take. And if we move this today, hopefully this money will still be available next year. We could have an updated policy in place to make this smoother a year from now.
Yeah, but I mean, going with Commissioner Toomey's point, right? Like, it does seem like we've spent more time discussing why it shouldn't be 15% to, why 15% is the right one. So,
Yeah.
maybe it weighs, we talk about that and we, like the cap, we change the policy where the cap is 15% and then get some feedback from admin on their
Yeah.
perspective.
I'd love-
However, you can't go in and start doing in-depth work on it to figure out what that percentage, because then it's always 15%.
Mhm.
Yes, Commissioner Toomey?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think you summed it up really well. And, it's stuff like this too, where I'm like, this is such a small amount of money in the grand scheme of things, like that, it's taking up a large amount of what this money is actually supposed to be used for. Like I mean, you can't do a whole lot with, what did you say it was,
40 grand.
40 grand? I mean, like, how much are we really gonna do with 40 grand already, right? And we're eating up so much of it. And so, like I said, I know there are places where this does make sense. I just feel like, I don't know if that 15 was too high. Maybe the number's really 10. I understand why it's 15. It's just like, we spend more time, like you said, talking about why it shouldn't be 15 than, because there are a lot of, scenarios like the fire training center or whatever else. And it's like, hey, taking 15% materially affects our ability to do the project we want to do. So that's really it. I know that's not what was on the agenda today, so I will stop talking about it.
All right, any other discussion? All right, seeing none. So we are going to vote on,
Policy decision to move it to ways.
yeah, so the policy of accepting 10% and moving this to ways. Okay. All right, so no further discussion? All right, so all in favor, signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it carries.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it very much. We do really good work with that. Are there any questions for me about the presentation I gave, or anything I could answer about the health department as it stands? Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. All right. Yep, moving on to number 9, MSU Extension. You getting control of the? Okay. It'll catch up. What? Oh, yes, Commissioner Toomey.
I just wanted to say thank you really quick before you left. It was a great presentation, and I appreciated your slides. I thought they were just structured very well. It was very helpful for me. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Morning.
Morning.
All right, well, I am here to ask that you allow MSU Extension for Eaton County to be placed on the ballot August 4th for a ballot question as to funding. So the basics are two things. Number one, why a millage request? And number two, if a millage request, why the amount that we selected? Okay, so number one, in brief, we all know through the last budget season, which was very difficult, that the board had to make significant cuts. One of those programs that was cut was MSU Extension funding. And at the time, it was thought that the county will get into financial shape and then bring back some of the programs and things that they had to cut when the time arose, and if that was possible. That's number one. So since then, everyone in the office that was still employed was let go. The 4-H program and the clubs were all dissolved. There are a couple clubs that most of the youth signed up for other counties. In one of those instances, the club leaders lived in the other county anyway, and so that's not uncommon that there's crossover. There's been a little bit of heat from those other counties from that, but that's just the way it is. Those committees were shut down, and the funds are being held in accounts until the program is resurrected. Number two, if a millage was placed in the ballot and it was passed, then that would provide that steady source of funding, at least for 4 years. And obviously, and I'm not a huge fan of anything coming on my tax bill. I think I told you all that before. But at the same token, that would provide a steady source of funding for at least 4 years. And so that would be the case. And it would continue that partnership that has lasted for more than 100 years. MSU Extension has been part of the local economy, the local farming community for over 100 years through two world wars and through depression, through difficult times, and it's ebbed and flowed and looked different at different times, but there's always been that constant presence because of the significance that agriculture has on the state of Michigan, and also things that offshoot from that, like home economics, basic home economics, preservation of food to get through difficult times, and then youth leadership and encouraging youth to become leaders. And I think I've stated on prior occasions that those youth who are involved in 4-H are beyond ready to be leaders, beyond ready to serve the community. And I think we have a lot of evidence of that. And that local partnership is part of that partnership with the state, with the federal government. That's how we're funded. We're funded through those in addition to additional grants. And usually, with every dollar that's invested in MSU Extension, it's been calculated, and I'm not going to go through calculations now, but anywhere from $3 to $7 in return on investment. If we have a fully functional local office, that allows us that place, that jumping off point where we can serve the local community, where we can house educators that serve the local community and beyond. Very similar to the way that still I have educators who are doing work in Eaton County that are from other counties. I just spoke to Eric Anderson, our soybean educator the other day, who has an event coming up at Williams, and it's been a long-standing thing, and he's done field trials year after year, and they're not going to stop those things. Those are important, and I've been encouraging them to continue doing those things. It makes it much more difficult than when we don't have that local infrastructure to do that. So that's in short. Yeah, I've been before you through the last budget season. I feel that we've made our case, we've taken questions, but the case for MSU Extension, that's number one. And so it needs that local source of funding and that partnership. The next question is all right, well, if a ballot question, well, then how much? So basically, I backed into it in this sense. And so it's in your materials, you've got my request, which actually gives you an estimated budget. And then you've got other materials, including the ballot question itself. But in short, if we have a fully functioning office, we're going to have that base assessment that includes the 4-H program coordination. Okay, so that's number one, and we've been through the cost of that before. And then number two, it's been longstanding that we've actually had housed here an agricultural educator, and I think that's very important for this community to have that cornerstone within the office. And so if we're going to take this opportunity to go before the voters and ask them to grant this request, then I think it's only appropriate that we budget for an ag educator that we can have housed in Eaton County, because that'll benefit the county even more. So there's the cost for that. And then three, we want to make sure that we have that we're open for business every day. It's one thing that we're not now, obviously. And so that takes full-time support. And so I have that built in. So then we have a total contractual amount that would be the cost of the program. And then in addition to that, you've got your basics like supplies, training, travel, office equipment, internet, et cetera. And then one thing that I added to that, which is a normal part of a process, is the cost of all the county operations and buildings and utilities and everything else. You know, what is the share of having an extension office in there to be able to recoup that in the sense of rent and utilities? So built into that budget, and these are estimates, $37,000 for that one line item. So then we got total expenses for a 1 year, this next year, $330,000. So that's the base amount to do those things if we're going to go before the voters and ask. I met with the controller, and I had made an original request and had a higher amount, but then put the pencil to it, met with the controller, and fine-tuned it down to the amount of .07. And one of the ways I did that was I took and estimated, well, then there's the TIF recapture, and then I did a budget for every year, adding 3% to that base amount that I just explained for 4 years, and came with year 4 saying that, well, to run extension, we are going to need to have at least 361 in year 4. So wanted to make sure that we covered that. Plus, there's the potential of Headley rollback, which I'm not the expert on how that's calculated and rolled back, but there's that question. So you come up with the needing to raise 368,769, and then you take into consideration the taxable value, and that's where I came out to 0.0691 mils would do it, which is a fairly small amount, and round that to 0.07. And the estimate, and I'm not the expert in this, but I did discuss this with Ben and had him pass it around to the various county departments that were appropriate, and that would raise 373,780. So if this was placed on the ballot for that amount for 4 years, that's a reasonable period of time to allow the voters to say, no, we aren't going to have it. And if they say yes, then 4 years, they can change their mind, as opposed to asking something like a 6-year or 8-year or 10-year, right? So that's that. And then as far as the cost, I mean, essentially, if you have a $300,000 home, that's the fair market value, $150,000 in taxable value, that'd be $10.50 for that house on that tax bill, on that winter tax bill that would fund that. So that would be at that high rate, and I've done the calculations each one. So it's fairly reasonable. Like I said, I'm no fan of anything coming on my tax bill. So any amount is an amount that you have to take into consideration, but it's what dollars are being invested and what's coming back in return. So that's the justification for the amount. Wanted to make it as low as possible, considering all those things, but still able, if we're going to do this, and if you allow it, to give ourselves a chance to have a fully functioning office with an ag educator that's dedicated to that office. So, there's a lot of the papers that I submitted, but there's the basic millage language. We have submitted that would obviously have to be looked at to make sure that the county agrees that everything's up to snuff, the initial review of it that it is, that those amounts are estimates, but they'd be pretty close to what we're saying. That's number one. Number two, every year I would have to come before you like at any other time and submit a budget. You all could say that, no, we're not going to levy that amount. You've got enough with this. We're going to do 0.065 or whatever it is, or the Headley rollback could be that. I could voluntarily choose to do that if I look out and say, we're not going to need, or we're not going to hire this person for that particular year. So even though it does change the relationship, because it puts it before the voters as opposed to the commissioners, you all still have that oversight, and that would be very important to me as well. So that's my reasoning for it, that's my request, and that I would ask that we just be able to start the process and move it through.
Okay, commissioners, I'd like to just give you some information first before we go on to any further questions. So on the 24-25 budget, MSU Extension was funded $155,093. They asked, when they came to the 25-26 budget, they asked for $159,746. After we said no, they came back with a revised number 2 different times. The first time was $122,224. And then they came back with $84,703. And now they're asking for $330,952. So I just wanted to give you some background, right, and some history, so you can put that $330,000 in relation to where we were and the process. So does any commissioners Commissioner DeRosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a few questions to ask here. What is the primary source of MSU Extension funding?
The primary source is federal, state, and local. So local makes up about 15% of that total piece of the pie,
15%.
about 15%.
Okay. And of the 83 Michigan counties, how many participate in funding?
I think that all but, and don't quote me on this, but I think all but six have had, with the addition of Eaton County, and most recently Dickinson County, I think there's 6 that don't have contracts in place. But they may have some type of grant funding locally that I'm not aware of.
Okay. When I researched this before the budget a year ago, I understood it was more like 39 counties participated, but that may have changed. Of this amount, and as Commissioner Barber stated, you're asking for this much because of the millage request, but in reality, it was about half of what you really, or this is twice what you asked for in the past. So, of this amount, and my understanding is your budget for MSU Extension runs north of $70 million. Would that be correct?
For MSU Extension statewide, yes.
Yeah, okay. So of that 70 million, well, I'm just out of curiosity, do you operate on a zero balance budget at the end of your fiscal year, or do you have surplus revenue at the end of your fiscal year?
Every year, we do our budget, okay? So it'd be a complicated question to answer as far as that goes. There's not extra dollars out there. There's money in accounts at various times, depending on what those are dedicated to. But it's essentially, especially in the local operations, it's a zero base. But every year when there's the money comes in, it gets allocated. There's expenses, there's cost averaging for the cost of educators, for cost of program instructors throughout. And we try to be as conservative as possible within that. And then we try to project it out.
Okay, well, the point to all those questions was if all you really need to operate is less than $200,000, being generous, that's not an amount that can be found within that $70+ million budget just to see if we can make this work? I mean, federal and state money alone, if the counties are only providing 15% of your overall budget, then I would think this $120,000, $150,000, or $200,000 would be a minuscule amount request from federal and state funding to fund this and see if it works. My understanding is not all 4-H, quote-unquote, 4-H groups participate in the 4-H. And I've been told that our fairgrounds hasn't used the 4-H since the 90s. So I don't know. I mean, having grown up, and I've said this before, having grown up on a farm, I get it. I understand the value of MSU Extension. But at this point, with our budget for our county, if we can't afford it, and you've got a much larger budget, MSU Extension statewide, than we have as a county, I would think this $120,000, $150,000, $200,000 maybe could be scrounged from something out of that $70+ million budget. So I would be opposed, and I understand, putting it on the ballot lets the voters decide, but at this point, I'm not inclined to support that.
May I respond to that?
Certainly, absolutely.
Well, first of all, that lesser amount, and I tried to explain that in case I'm not explaining it well, that is with the bare bones. That's with having just a 4-H program coordinator. I'm talking about being able to house an ag educator that MSU Extension did fund for many years in George Silva, but to where we'd guarantee have that here. So this is the opportunity to put that, because it's a need of the location. That's number one. No, that's why it's gone up. Number two, to be able to recoup some of the costs of the county for the housing, for the utilities, et cetera, that the county's already paying when you agree to MSU Extension. And number three, no, they don't give me an extra $200,000 to run this budget. If they were to do that, they would have done it, and I wouldn't have 0 employees in Eaton County. So they can't. And You know, I could bring our budget director in to answer some of those specific questions, but I know that's not the case. I mean, we're dependent on grants, we're dependent on certain income, it's all allocated. When we lost the federal funding for SNAP education, then 90-plus staff persons were let go. That's just a fact. So I don't know how to answer that, except for I'm doing things as conservatively as I can.
Well, but here we are, my federal tax money goes to MSU Extension, my state tax money goes to MSU Extension, and now you want my local tax money to go to MSU Extension.
And that's correct, because that's all part of that partnership. And that's to bring the university to the people by having educators and program instructors strategically placed in all 83 counties. Now, even in places where there's not funding, we still have some people, and it's not 39. We've got, there's at least 16 millage counties out of the counties, and every other county has agreements with the county, with the exception of to my knowledge, 6. And I can tell you with the 6 counties I have in District 8, that's the case with the exception of Eaton County. The 2 counties that I now oversee down in District 13 are fully funded and maxed out, and every other county within those districts. So I get your questions, and I share a lot of the same philosophical things that you do. I'm trying to do things for as least expensive as I can and still provide those benefits to the taxpayers. And so what I'm asking is, this is reasonable within the bounds of millage requests, and if they decide to support it, that'll provide that stable funding and take that burden off of the general fund.
I understand your point, thank you.
Commissioner Toomey, then Shaver, then Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How many counties fund MSU Extension with a dedicated millage? Like, how many counties fund in this way?
With a dedicated millage?
Yeah.
I believe it's somewhere to the extent of 16, but I don't have the exact number as I sit here and tell you. I can tell you that Montcalm County does, Gratiot County does. I can tell you that Ionia just approved to put us on the ballot just yesterday.
Okay.
Wexford County, Saginaw County. Those are some that I know off the top of my head for sure that I can tell you.
Okay. And I guess I'm curious then, how is that more of supplemental funding usually? Is that to fund the program at a base level? Can you tell me about how they got there?
Yes. So you've got federal funding, as we've discussed. You've got state, and then you've got the local buy-in. In counties where there's not been sufficient funds because of county budget constraints to fund MSU Extension, they felt that it was important to fund it locally through a millage. So put it to the voters and say, vote on this, that's the local portion. So that funds that local office completely. And so when I list out these amounts here, that's exactly what it does. It provides for all of extension programming, plus that dedicated 4-H staff person, plus a dedicated support staff person, and in this case, plus that dedicated agricultural and agribusiness educator in the office. So it's that local office that is completely funded, and that brings the benefit of much more. In many of those offices, we have multiple staff that are paid through those federal dollars, through those state dollars, through grants that are housed in those local offices, but that's only possible because we have a local office.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Shaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions. So when we look at this, it's really a $1.2 million ask roughly from the people because it's a 4-year request. Of that, roughly $330,000 a year, you're saying, I want to make sure I understand you correctly. You're saying 15% of that budget would be the local responsibility, and then state and federal should assume the rest of that? Or are you suggesting that this is a $2.2 million a year venture for Eaton County MSU Extension?
Eaton County MSU Extension is that local budget of $330,952 the first year, $340,000, $881 the second year, and so on. That's the local commitment. That runs the local office. Any additional money that comes in through extension, then that allows us to put not just an ag educator, maybe an additional ag educator, maybe a health and nutrition educator, maybe a natural resources educator that the county's budget wouldn't be paying for. They would be in addition to. This is to run the local office and to leverage those other dollars.
And so your testimony would be that that's going to be about a $1.9 million value a year? Because I was just running the number on that. If 15% is the 330,000, you know, that 85% is about 1.85 million dollars a year, or is that ratio off?
Without putting a pencil to it, but I don't want to give an exact answer, but I would say it's much like any county has 14 up to 20 educators that have that county within their coverage location. Just like Eric Anderson, who I mentioned soybeans. Eric is down in St. Joe's County, but he helps cover Eaton County. So if you added up all the salaries of those educators and then all the campus assets that support a local county, it's going to be over $1 million easy.
Okay. So agriculture is very important to our county. That's not really my point. I guess my thoughts with this are, for the committee, is that, you know, our voters have voted twice for what I would call austerity on the side of the county. There was an opportunity, at least with the first vote, that this would have been covered under that general millage increase. It seems like a huge ask for the voters for them to go from what we were funding at about 45% of this in the previous budget to now asking them. And I don't understand it's not us asking them. It would be you all beginning the process of allowing that on the ballot. I would remind you, I think our voters have ballot fatigue, and we are looking at a significant amount of these type of requests being on the ballot. And so I think even though the extension provides a great resource to our county, especially the young people, that doubling the budget of that and asking the voters to look at that again is a little bit silly. Thank you.
Commissioner Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question is, out of that amount of money, if this was to go to a ballot, what percentage of that would actually go to the 4-H program?
The 4-H program, the cost of the 4-H program, part of it is within that base assessment of $87,000, and that's roughly $37,521 this current year. So you just have to add the increases. And then the additional, well, no, actually, I'm sorry, I'm wrong on that. 77,293 of that would be. Okay, that would be dedicated to 4-H dollars.
Okay, and then one other quick question that I had. On your ballot language, section 3, it talks about how the estimate of the revenue for the county of Eaton, 26 calendar year, yada, yada, $7,225.26 may be required to be distributed to downtown development authorities. Is that per municipality that's listed there, such as Charlotte, Eaton Rapids, Grand Ledge, and so on? Or is that $772.25 divided between those 6 entities?
I defer to the controller on that question.
Yeah, and I will say we have not sent this to our legal counsel, so if the committee moved this, that would be the next step for us, is having our attorneys look at it, but we're not going to expend the resources till we
Correct.
see a policy decision. But that would be divided up based on each of those authorities. Some of those are tax increment finance districts that are grandfathered in, so their rates were established like back in, I want to say like 2000, early 2000s. And then so it's going to be different. It's not going to be equalized. The rate we do have, when Vandermark gives his updates, he has the breakdown on a per community basis. So if you're interested in what that looks like, I can ask him to put something together the next time he comes into Ways and Means to give an update.
I just kind of wanted to, as far as the percentage for 4-H in that portion, I wanted transparency for the general public so that they're not reading it wrong and thinking, oh, you know, these downtown development authorities are going to get this much money per, you know, municipality, and then the 4-H kids are going to get all these extra money. And I just was
Right.
trying to get a little transparency.
Definitely. The dollars that go to these tax increment that's completely managed at the local level. We have no say. It won't support any operational pieces for MSU. It's the same with all of our millages, in fact. So it's one of the reasons why people look at their tax bills and they think, oh my gosh, I'm overtaxed. And I understand, I get property tax statements twice a year too. But a large segment of that goes to support schools, goes to support individual millages. And then within that, the county has no say in these TIFA districts. Once they're established, all the ones that are grandfathered in, we are stuck with them, and we get property tax values off of them based on the property value in those districts, I think in 1995. Everything above that is retained by the local. So you guys have say on any new ones before that law took effect, but the rest of it, we've got no say in.
All right, thank you both. I appreciate the clarification.
So did we charge MSU Extension rent for that building?
We did not.
Okay.
We did not. So, and that's conservation districts coming up, and we have been working on addressing a model where we will no longer just comp space for organizations, even if they do really good work. At the end of the day, if this board wants to appropriate money to support an organization, that's one thing, but we're using the same square footage rate that we negotiated with the health department or with the Michigan Health Department, DHHS, yeah.
It just needed to be said, because he said multiple times at the podium that, you know, 37,000 or whatever would be allocated for office rent and supplies and all that. And I didn't want the public to think that it's a,
True cost figure. if
well,
we're
I mean,
still-
it would be us approving to go on there to get a little cut of the money that they didn't say could come to the county. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
if we didn't charge them rent before, we just need to make sure that it's open, that, hey, that was our old policy. We are looking to change the policy to start charging everybody rent that occupies one of our buildings.
It is, and it's about $17 a square foot is the.
Yes,
commercial
Commissioner.
rate.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a different kind of question because I honestly do not understand. You are part of MSU. Okay, so the schools don't come to us when they're going to throw a ballot proposal, okay, onto the sheet that we vote on. The cities don't, like Grand Ledge can approve whatever they want on a ballot, Eaton Rapids can, whatever. So you're part of MSU, why do you have to really come to us at all? Can't you just go talk to them in East Lansing, write something up, put it on the ballot? I don't understand.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay,
To my knowledge, this is the way it has to be done.
well, this is the way we've been doing it, possibly, but I don't understand because come from the world of public schools.
And this is a county funding issue. So it's
Okay.
my knowledge the way it is. And part of the reason that dollar we've mentioned has gone up is because of recapturing like cost for rent and utilities and all that stuff that the county has been paying for, but not in a contractual form. But this is just to try to put it all out there. That's one of the reasons of that increase.
I'm just asking a question. Maybe you ask MSU, I don't know.
I'd like to, not to cut you off, Commissioner, but, I mean, to the point, your question that you're asking him, right? Why doesn't they do it at a state? And you're saying it's a county individual level. So to me, that means that it's the choice of the county if they want your programs in the county or not.
That is correct.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
That pretty much sums it up, like. we-
Okay, I just didn't know because I know what the schools do to me all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah, we either fund them ourselves, or they're saying we put it on and ask the voters if they want funding, so. Do we have any other, yes, Commissioner Toomey?
So let's just walk down this road with me for a second, maybe, and Commissioner Pearl Wright just kind of jogged this in my head. Let's just say that no county in Michigan funded at the local level. What kind of service does that leave MSU Extension with? What is provided at that point from those state and federal dollars? Can you help me walk me through what that would look like?
It's obviously a hypothetical. Things would have to be restructured because you're talking about then a statewide organization that would be bringing the education and resources of the university to the people. How would they do that? Would everybody be housed on campus and have to travel out? Would everything be online? Would there be nothing? It's not been the case for over 100 years that was the situation. So, I mean, I have no authority to say that Extension should be restructured in some other format than it already is. That's the way that local partnership has been the way it's been since, for 100 years plus.
I understand that. I'm just trying to get a clearer picture of what these state and federal dollars are funding.
Well, first of all, there's research that takes place on campus. There are educators, instructors housed on campus. They do work out in fields, just like any other farmers' fields. They ask for that partnership to be able to do trials in the fields and that type of thing. So, yeah, is the university still going to be the university? Yes. Is research going to take place? Yes. Are they going to do outreach to get that information out to the farmers? Yes, but it's going to look different. Without that local presence, it makes it much more difficult to bring that information out. Just like without a local health department, it's different as far as how you bring that information, that education, and those resources to the people. So it would just look totally different. I'm not exactly sure how it'd be, whether it'd be all online or whether there would be, folks that would go out every once in a while. I don't know. I know that we have educators who serve the whole state, and they're always going to serve the whole state as long as there's funding to do that, whether it be through state dollars, federal dollars, grant dollars. They're going to still do that. Okay, and I look at this as I'm doing everything I can to make sure that the people in Eaton County are served. That's why I'm advocating for this. That's what I'm here doing. I don't know what it would look like if every county defunded us. I know certainly there'd be a lot of cuts of people, and that would make a difference in and of itself, not just from loss of jobs, but loss of expertise.
Right, and once again, I'm not saying that I think that should be done or anything like that. I was just trying to get a better understanding because we keep talking about how this is funded locally, from the state and federally, and so I was just trying to understand where what exactly each pot of money is funding. And so it sounds like it's mainly going to be that research, and then the majority of that local funding is disseminating said research and resources.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I would probably say, Commissioner Toomey, that they wouldn't be eligible for some of those federal or state funds if they didn't have the MSU extensions, probably. Commissioner DeRosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just did some quick math here, and hypothetically, if all 83 counties put in $330,000, that gives you an additional almost $28 million. And when you add that to your 70-plus million budget, you're over $100 million. I can't see how anybody that's funded to the tune of over $100 million, well, hypothetically, $100 million, they can't come up with $300,000 to help out a county that's, is struggling financially. That boggles my mind. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so what we've been discussing, he came in and gave his brief, and then we're talking about if we move this millage request to ways, that is what hasn't been motioned, hasn't been seconded, but that's what's on the floor. So I guess, is there, I'll move it. Is there a second? All right, so I got a motion and support. So that would be to vote, yes, a yes vote would be to move it on the ways for further consideration. So, all in favor, signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Oh. All right, call roll call, please.
Now, we're only sending to Ways and Means, right?
Yes, sending it to Ways and Means, yes.
Jeannie Pearl Wright,
Yes.
Jane Whitaker,
No.
Brian DeRosa. No. Jacob Toomey,
No.
Scott Hansen,
Yes.
Nicole Christensen,
No.
Chair Barber.
No. Noes have it.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 noes and 2 yeses, so the motion fails.
Yep, okay,
All right, thank you for your time.
thank you. All right, next up would be Road Commission.
Well, thank you for having me back this month to hopefully provide some additional information and answer some of the questions you guys had. I still got a little cough from my sickness last month, so bear with me as I hopefully don't hack too bad, but he had a couple of good questions that really that's what I'm here for is why are we asking for a millage and why are we asking for that amount? So hopefully I can answer those 2 questions today. In the packet that was delivered electronically, there's a little packet that has this map at the top of it. This will hopefully answer the why. And then, once I get through that, then Ben has some, other information that I was at the office till 8 last night trying to gather. So it didn't make it in your packet, but he has paper copies to hand out, so. To start, there's the local road asset map. So this is a snapshot of what we're asking for a millage. This is the same roads as the current millage that expires in 2026. Other than the current millage didn't do anything with the culverts and didn't do anything with bridges. It was only the roads that you see on here. But as you can see, there's many large culverts and 64 bridges on local roads that also need maintenance, need to be replaced, need to be kept up. Otherwise, they can cause road closures. We have a few of those around the county right now, actually, because culverts on local roads have failed. The next sheet you guys saw, I believe last month, was what was the condition like of the local roads before we started, and what's the condition like now? As you can see, it's much better, which is part of the why. If we do nothing, these roads are gonna deteriorate again and turn back into what they were like in 2015. So we need to keep up on them and keep some preventative maintenance. They don't need to be improved like they were. They don't need to be resurfaced necessarily. A few of them may need to over time, but if we can keep the maintenance on them, that'll delay that additional cost. There's a couple more maps that kind of similar to the bar chart show what the roads were like. It's just a different representation. All the red roads that were really poor condition, and then what they're like now. So we've made quite an improvement, spent quite a bit of money improving the roads, and hate to see them deteriorate. There's a couple more sheets that I'll get into more with the handouts that I have, but just kind of a snapshot of how much money, if we had $1.5 million, what would we do? Re-gravel. We'd do preventative maintenance on the asphalts. We could do roadside ditching, do our 2 applications of dust control, and put money towards bridge and culvert replacement. And on the next sheet, if we did 1 mil, you wouldn't do the re-gravel or the preventative maintenance on the asphalt as often. You'd have to space that out. Plus, there'd be no roadside ditching and no culvert replacement. There'd still be the 2 applications of dust control. And then there's a bar chart. I think this really kind of represents what I'm talking about. On the far left, you can see the current condition of the roads. That bottom 7% is, No, these are roads that have been done so far. So there's some more roads that haven't been done in 26 I didn't include in this bar chart because they're all poor and they don't really count yet until we resurface them as far as what we're talking about on the new millage. But as you can see, in a mill and a half, we can keep all the roads out of the poor condition and have about a 40-60 split to good and fair roads. That's a pretty good split for roads in Michigan. If we went with one mill, you're not able to do some of the rehab, any resurfacing, anything like that. And those roads that are down near the bottom get to be too bad for preventative maintenance and they fall into that poor condition. And then over time, as you can see, it goes up. Your good roads go down and that just trend continues. And then on the far right is if we do nothing, you can see, I don't think that would be good for anybody. That it deteriorates quite quickly at that condition. And then the last one, just the cost distribution that I used for essentially this bar chart to say, okay, how much would be spent each year. This is kind of an approximation. Obviously, over time, it would go up, costs go up. The millage revenue would probably go up, but this is a good average based on current costs because it's, I can't project out, especially with oil going, what it's doing now. Who knows what asphalt and emulsion is going to cost in a year. So that's kind of the why. The roads, we put a lot of work, a lot of money into them, keeping them in good shape. We'd like to keep them in good shape, which requires a preventative maintenance plus replacing the culverts. All this work without a millage would have to be paid at least 50% by townships. So the townships would be paying at least half of all these costs to do that. So I was gonna ask if I had questions before I get into the handouts.
Yes, Commissioner Toomey?
Yeah, actually, you know what? Maybe this should wait until, why don't you discuss the handouts first? I'm just thinking
Okay.
it might make more sense afterwards, so I'll hold my tongue.
Okay, then Commissioner DeRosa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning.
So this is a new millage request as opposed to renewal, correct?
Correct, it is a new, because the other one expires this year, so there's no, it would be no additional millage, no additional taxes. It would replace what we're currently generating.
Okay, and you mentioned, I think, last meeting or the prior meeting, at least in a previous meeting, that the language would have to be different because the focus of the fund, expending the funds is different. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, what's the difference?
The first millage was a rehabilitation millage, so all the roads are so bad and in such poor condition, and the gravels had not gotten gravel in some of them 20 to 30 years, I would guess. They needed rehabilitation. A preventative maintenance chip seal was not gonna help, not gonna do anything. So the original one was to rehabilitate all the local roads, because there wasn't sufficient funding from the state to do it. We weren't able to even plow the roads and grade the roads for what we were getting from the state for local roads. So this was to do the rehabilitation and do the 2 inches of asphalt. Some of them we did a crush and shape, and then add gravel to all the gravel roads.
All right, and then the last question is, who rates these roads from good to poor to bad? I've got my choices, but anyway, I want to hear from you.
Yeah, it's a statewide, that's actually a national system that's used nationally. It's called PASER, P-A-S-E-R-R, or PACER, some people say, but it's it's an acronym for something, but I couldn't tell you what it meant. But it's essentially a surface rating. You drive it, you look at the surface. If it has a certain type of cracking, it's rated this. If it's got more cracking, it's that. If it's got no cracking. If you pave a road, it's immediately a 9 or a 10, depending on if it's a reconstruct or just a paving. If you do a chip seal, it automatically goes to an 8, and then it deteriorates after that, and then there's a chart that goes down. So it's a system that I think it should be a 5 or 6 point system, but they got 10 steps, and so you can argue whether it's a 4 or 5 because it's got a certain condition, but it's a statewide, it's actually what we have to use on the primary roads for the state asset management. By law, we're required to rate the primary roads using that same system.
All right, and then lastly, does this millage request allow for new projects over the course of the millage, or is this maintenance only?
It would be prevented, it'd be more flexible. So some roads maybe will get a little too far gone for a chip seal or a surface treatment. And so maybe they need to be resurfaced, this millage would be able to do that. So it'd be more flexible to, it's called a mix of fixes. You do preventative maintenance, you do a rehabilitation, you do an overlay, you do whatever you need to do to keep that road in good shape, is what this millage would allow us to do.
Okay. Well, I've got one road in particular I've always been curious about, and that's that mile stretch of Columbia east of M99, between M99 and Waverly Road. It's narrow. The trees are very close. Doesn't match anything else on Columbia, either Ingham County or Eaton County side. Would that be considered maintenance or a new project, or are we just gonna leave it the way it is?
That would be a new project, but that's a primary road, so that would not get paid with the millage funds. That's a separate.
Oh, okay.
Road Commission would continue to fund that, or we would get federal funds to pay for that kind of repair. So this is only for the local roads that we don't get, we get very little funding to do, enough to, like I said, currently do the routine maintenance on it.
Okay, well, I would lobby for that one.
Okay. Yep, I'll take a look at it, because we're always looking for primary projects.
Okay, all right, thank you, Matt.
Commissioner Toomey.
All right, I guess we're doing it now. Got it started, Commissioner Troche. Okay, so I have a question about the length of the millage. The previous one for the rehab was for 10 years. This preventative maintenance is for 6. Why for 6?
So the first one is for 12.
Oh, it's for 12?
Yep.
My bad.
The first one is for 12, because we looked at what $1.5 million would generate, looked at what it would cost, and it was 12 years. That's how it came up with that. The 6 years was, this will provide an opportunity to at least do one treatment on each paved road. And outside of that, no necessary reason for that. I'm open to other lengths.
I was honestly wondering why not longer, right? To keep, I mean, I want to keep our roads, if this is kind of what it costs to keep the majority, or all of our roads in good or fair condition, I think that's, I mean, because we know too, if these roads get too far gone, you know, it's just costs more and more to rehabilitate them than it does to maintain them. So if this is what the cost is to keep our roads good, I mean, I hate going to the ballot. I don't like, you know, I don't want to do that. I don't like doing it. So does this make sense to have a time frame closer to 10 years, longer than 6? I'm just saying, if this is like something that we're like, okay, we want to keep our infrastructure in good condition, and this is the most cost-effective thing long-term, does this make sense to have a longer term on this?
I would support that.
I got for you, Commissioner. This millage, right? You specifically added ditching and drainage, right? And then that is help. I mean, that also helps the survival of the road, not only the road, the surface, but the bed of the road. Is that correct?
Yes, if you want to see what I'm talking about, drive the county today. After the rain we got, there's many washouts, water sitting everywhere. This would help address those issues on all the local roads.
Okay. Commissioner Shaver?
Thank you, Matt. We're looking forward to some ditching in District 1. But that being said, your slides here really help show the picture here. I just want to maybe touch on a couple of things. First of all, I was in one of my township meetings earlier this week, and they were supporting this because if they're not even going to be able to budget for dust control if there's not on the local roads if there's not some help from a millage in this way. So I think it's important for people to understand that might be watching this the costs that are involved that this helps cover, that previously 12 years ago came out of a township budget, some of those things, and those townships may not be able to budget for that. I think this, in my opinion, kind of in summary, is kind of a 2.0 of what, like phase 2 of what you guys did for the last 12 years. Is that correct? And that's why the language change, and it's not a renewal, and not an agreement, not an agreement or disagreement with a longer term, but are these 6 years enough to fulfill the millage language, right, that you're kind of setting forth, or are you going to need more years to fully, or is there going to be a phase 3, I guess is my question.
Yeah, so this, whether it be 6 years or 10 years, We will not, we'll get surface treatments on everything. And we'll get re-gravel on half to just over half of the gravel roads, a new layer of gravel. Because this millage would put gravel every 10 to 12 years, depending on the millage that was approved. So it would get a long ways towards that, but it's not gonna replace every culvert. It's not gonna get all the ditching done. There's 750 miles of local roads that we wouldn't be able to do in 10 years, even close. So we'd hit the worst areas first to get those cleaned up for the ditching, and then probably get with the townships and get a program to figure out what they would want to have ditched.
Okay.
And start kind of hitting those as we have time and the money comes in. So that's kind of my thought, but I haven't hashed it all out.
Sure.
Obviously.
So for the public's understanding, because I think I've got my mind around this, but the reason why this isn't a renewal is because a renewal would cause you to have to go back and repave roads that probably aren't demanding repavement yet, and they could just use some further care, right, to extend the value of those dollars that we've already spent. But it wouldn't put you in handcuffs if this was a little bit longer of a term. To some other commissioners' points, it's not going to limit you. In other words, if the current millage was longer, you've pretty much fulfilled the majority of everything under that millage that it was paying for. This second one, which is not a renewal, but really a replacement at that dollar amount, it's going to allow you to really, by your graph, increase slightly the condition of the roads in the county and maintain them. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would definitely help plan farther out to get the roads that need to be done, and have a schedule planned where 6 years we're gonna do them once, and then we're gonna maybe overlap a year. So 10 years would be, if we did it where we could do a surface treatment every 5 years, we'd be able to get 2 treatments on every asphalt road in that time, and get every gravel road done in that 10 years. So we won't be able to do those things with the 6 year.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to your first point about the initial millage, you're right. The roads don't need to all be resurfaced. There might be a few of them that need a thin overlay, but they don't need to be crush and shape. They don't need to have a 2-inch overlay. They don't need all that anymore. They need to be kept in the condition they're in, rather than letting them deteriorate.
And that's the reason for it not being a renewal, but having new language is because it would actually limit you to redoing work that doesn't need to be done yet.
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Toomey.
Thank you. Oh, I already have my mic on. That's wonderful. So I'm looking out to the projections on the 1.5 mils all the way out to 2036, and I see that at the 1.5 mil funding, we're removing all of our poor condition roads, and we're oscillating, low 50s, high 50s, almost 60 on the fair condition roads. I'm just wondering, as an unintended consequence of possibly extending this out to 10 years, adding another 4 on what you've projected here, is this like we're going to slowly trickle back up into like that 60, 62, 64% over time? Or is that kind of just like, hey, certain roads are coming due for maintenance at certain times? I'm just wondering if by extending this out to 10 years, am I slowly going to see that condition of fair creep into good? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, is this like a non-sufficient amount if I extend the term?
It's probably a half a day seminar answer.
Okay.
Let me try and summarize it. A good road is considered a rating of 8, 9, or 10. A 10 is only if you fully reconstruct a road. Brand new road, that's a 10. So none of these roads that we paved with the millage were rated a 10 to start, because that's not how the system works, following the system. So essentially, you got an 8 or a 9 is your system. 9 is only 1 year. It can only be 9 for 1 year. So you pave it, it's a 9. The next year it has to be an 8, even if it looks the same. That's the system. So by default, you're gonna have less roads in the good, because there's less numbers in good. 5, 6, 7 are fair. So you got 3 numbers in there. Well, it can be a 7 for three years, a 6 for So you have a lot more time for it to be in the fair category.
Right.
This is just more a representation of the system. If you drove a road that's a 7, the system says it's fair, you'd think it was really good shape.
That was my next question. I was gonna say, so let's take the bottom end of fair. What's a 5, right? I know it's gonna vary a little bit, but like, just give me like a general idea. What's a 5?
Yeah, a 5 is gonna be a road that's smooth, it rides nice, but you got crossroad cracks, you got some cracks down the center. But other than that, it's holding together pretty good. You put a crack seal on it, it'd be pretty good for a few more years, things like that. A 7's gonna be same type layout, but just less cracks.
Okay.
Has a lot to do with the number of cracks. If there's any rutting at all, then it would automatically be a 4, no matter what the surface looked like, because they consider that a base failure, which is arguable, but that's what the system calls it. So it's the system we have to use. I'm not a huge fan of everything on it, but it's consistent at least, so.
So I guess my question should then be, instead of the fair creeping into the good, are we gonna see any uptick in poor of up to 1% or something, right? Do we see a poor road come back in there at 1% if we extend this out another 4 years, right? Like, do you see what I'm saying? Is the 1.5 sufficient for that time frame?
What I would like to see and what I hope, based on all the information that I've gathered and the numbers I've put together, is that there'll be enough money available to put a asphalt overlay on those roads. So there will be a point, no matter what you do, you keep putting surface treatments on them, that they're not gonna last forever and things will start to creep into the poor.
Right.
But if there's sufficient funds generated that we can put an asphalt overlay on those, that's what they would need. Once they get to a 4, yeah, that's what they say, is put like an 1.5 inch overlay on it. There'll be enough money to be able to hit those ones as needed. And that's how, if you look at the 1.5 mils, we start with some poor roads and then they disappear. That's what that is happening to those, is there's a overlay being put on those.
Okay. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. These projections are 10-year projections for the rest of the commissioners. They're not 6-year projections.
Yeah, 6 year was hard to show, so I wanted to lengthen it out a little bit, yep.
Okay, move on.
Yeah, it looks, you've all started to look at these, the 8.5 by 14 sheets here. And so in the packet that I electronically submitted, I had 1 and 1.5 mils as a representation. So last night, some questions came up, and so I was at the office till 8 o'clock, updating some information. So that's what these 4 sheets are. The 3 sheets, that have in the upper left 1.5 mil, 1.25 mils, and 1 mil. That shows how many miles in each township, how much each treatment is at the top, and then how much the cost would be for each one of those townships based on those surface treatments. And then you keep going to the right, the expected expense for ditching, and then the expected expense for dust control, and then same thing for culvert bridge replacement. We don't know which bridges and culverts are gonna go bad, which ones need treatment. They kind of pop up when there's a hole in the road, so I just spread that out evenly, without knowing what to do. But that's what each one of these are, and then you look at 1.25 mils, that matches the 1.5 mils, except it eliminates any ditching and any culvert replacement. So there won't be sufficient funding to do those two, but we can still do a surface treatment every 5 years, and we still re-gravel every 10 years, and then still do the dust control. And still have some money for asphalt overlays, but just no ditching, no culvert replacement. Anything that was to be done on those would have to be paid for or shared by the townships with the road commission. And then the last one's the 1 mil. This spreads out the resurfacing, or I'm sorry, the treatments, so preventative maintenance treatment on asphalt once every 6 years. And then the re-gravel would do spread out over 12 years. And there'd be no money for any asphalt overlays and no ditching and no culvert replacement. Still 2 applications of dust control, so that's what those 3 are. And then this kind of other sheet summarizes that to some extent by township. So you can see on the far left is the current millage, that's what we spent, total receipts, expenditures. And then the other 3 are expectations, estimates, based on this information from these other sheets. So I guess with that, I would open questions. What's that? Each one of these columns are the annual, because it was. Per year, yeah.
And just one thing there, Matt, just to bring up, you know, the stuff going on in the State House about local, you know, how they said they were gonna bring local funding.
Yep.
I need you just to quickly summarize where that is, and that when we get the funds, we don't know that they're coming until we get them, so we can't project projects. I mean,
Right.
just expand on that a little bit, just to give everybody's a refresher and some more, a little more context.
So the state took the sales tax that was being charged on fuel and turned that into fuel taxes. So that now comes through the Michigan Transportation Fund and gets distributed to the state, the counties, the cities who have roads. So there's an increase there. However, when they did that, they immediately removed the 600 million of the general fund they were putting in. So our MTF receipts have been down 20% since November. So next month, we're supposed to start seeing the increase, but by the end of the year, we're gonna be where we were last year. We're not getting any increase in 2026, as made it sound like at the state level when they first came up with that. Separate from that is the neighborhood roads funds. That's the corporate taxes, the marijuana tax, and there's one other thing in there, I can't remember what it is, but and so they're gonna collect that money and spread it amongst the road commissions. However, they really don't know what they're doing or how much they're getting or when they're gonna get it, and so those same questions are coming to us. We've heard we shouldn't expect anything before next February, and then we've heard that they don't really know what to expect, so our county road association said don't plan for anything. We don't know, they expect we're gonna get something, but they don't know what that is. And then that has to be expended, it's called neighborhood roads funds, but that has to be expended the same as our MTF between primary and local. So it's still not a huge increase to the local program. But when I first heard it, I expected it was all supposed to go to the local roads, and no, we have to follow the same formula and ratio, so. But I can't tell you what that number's gonna be yet.
Jerosha and then Toomey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt, looking at your proposal, the 1 mil increase doesn't allow for bridge or culvert, and you're kind of stuck on those because if they need to be repaired or replaced, you don't have any options. So where would the funding come from should that arise?
So we have a township match program that matches 50% for any of the chip seal or re-gravel. And we match, we'll pay 75% of a bridge or culvert replacement or repair. With the
So
township.
that means the township's on the hook for the remaining balance, whether they have it or not.
Yeah, or the road's gonna stay closed, which is
Okay.
why we have a couple of them closed.
And then bridges in particular, bridge replacement, you can't just put in or copy an existing bridge. You have to expand those now, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
And that's a state mandate for that?
Yeah, it's Eagle's gonna require the size, how much it spans the river and those things, and then the width would be based on AASHTO, which is a federal standard that they require certain width. So yeah, anything we replace would be much bigger. You're probably a minimum $1.5 million, probably closer to $2 million these days to replace any bridge, even a small bridge.
Well, and that's the joke that's been going around in different areas, that we've got $1 million bridge on a $100 road, and they just pop up out of nowhere, and there they are. So, and then this is kind of related, but my understanding is there's legislation or push in the legislature to increase the gross vehicle weight for semis, and there's a lobbying group trying to push back against that. Is that anything you've heard, and how would that impact our local roads?
I've actually gotten a message and an email from somebody wanting me to give them a bunch of information on it or whatever, and I've not responded. Our county road association is handling that at the state legislative level. We're not obviously in favor of that because that's the semis, the heavy semis. We have one of the heaviest axle weights in the country. That's the biggest thing that causes problems with the roads is those weights.
Yeah, what is the, is it per axle load they're calculating or the entire gross vehicle weight?
It's both. It depends on how it's calculated. So there's a axle weight and there's a total weight.
And they want to increase that up over 100,000 pounds, isn't it?
Yeah, it's over that now, and I'm not sure what, I don't know what exactly they're wanting to increase it to, but any increase would be a negative impact.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Having driven truck myself, I'm not in favor of increasing the payload because there's other factors involved besides the road, but the impact of the road certainly is not good. So, thank you, Matt.
Commissioner Toomey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my first question would be, and this is something I meant to ask in my earlier line of questioning, when you project out to 10 years, are you factoring in the assumed, like, I know you can't like have a crystal ball, but like what's inflation look like for us? Because I know like during COVID, when we were going to pave stuff, you know, we'd come back and they'd be like, actually, this is going to cost 20% more than what we said. And that really impacted our ability to execute on some long-term projects. So what does that look like in your projections?
So I didn't use inflation because, again, who knows, and especially oil and asphalt and emulsion are a big, in a program like this, a big cost and a big unknown because it fluctuates so much. So the last couple of years, asphalt's been really good price. 3 years ago, it was $30 more a ton than it had been. So it's hard to predict that. So I use today's dollars just to space that out, assuming based on the previous millage that every year we had some increase to the millage, assuming that's going to offset the increases to inflation and these other things.
That was my next question as well. You know, we got property values moving, we have costs of materials and everything else moving, and so I just wanted to know if you think that'll probably balance out-ish.
That would be my wish.
Okay.
But that's, yeah, it's so much of an unknown that, yeah, and I'm definitely not a financial analyst.
Okay, yeah. And I guess, you know, to round things out, what I would say is, before we go to vote on this, and I'm sure there's going to be more questions and comments, in the research from our state, families pay about $1,000 a year on average in Michigan for additional car repairs and costs just because of, you know, you hit a pothole, you blow a tire, it messes up, you know, your suspension, whatever else. And, you know, this cost to an average family on the ballot is going to be much, much less than $1,000 a year. And we're going to have great roads for it. So I don't think that should happen in Eaton County. I want to save people as much money as we can. And I would also point out that this is roads in general, even still today, although we've talked about it for probably, I don't even know how long in this state, probably forever before, you know, before I was alive. It's very popular. You know, 87% of voters in recent polling that I was reading recently support doing more to fix our roads. So this is something I'm very excited about. I'd support this even over a 10-year term, but we'll definitely like to see what everybody else has to say. So thank you.
Mr. Dawson?
I just wanted to add for context too is the board determines what level to levy different millages at every year through the budget process. So hypothetically, if the state somehow came through with a way to pour money out to counties and to road commissions, you all would have the ability to look at that allocation and then maybe levy less. So as always, a millage is up to that level. You don't have to levy it every year. So that'd be something you could take on an annual basis just to see if those reforms actually have teeth, or if it's similar to what we've experienced with public safety, where they create an avenue to get you more money and then they cut off other programs elsewhere and it ends up shaking out to be about the same on the other end. So anyway,
Are you telling me our state legislators are going to give us a bunch of money?
I am hopeful, but you plan for the future, plan for the worst, and then just know, like, as you have conversations with residents, like, hey, if the state does come through, you know, you can still advocate that you would say, hey, make it work with the dollar amount, and that might mean less in that budget year. So just confirming for everybody, you will get to assess that every single year if the millage were to pass.
Commissioner Whitaker?
Thank you. I'd like to just point out, we've invested $62 million so far in our roads, and we've made great progress, and I think it would be foolish to not, continue to make these improvements and get to a point where, we have the ideal, what did you say, the split, that you would like to have 40% good and 60% fair?
Yeah, that's actually, yeah, it's quite a good road condition.
So to get to that point, you know, I think it's worth, you know, saving, or protecting our investment. But I want to point out that, you know, a millage, if we agree as a board to a millage, I think we all need to be on the same page about supporting it so that when we're out in the community, we're, you know, in unison talking about, you know, the merits of a proposal that's going to be beneficial to everybody in the county. And looking at the way the numbers fall out, you know, most of the out-county townships and the smaller townships, you know, they're paying like, you know, 3, 4, 5% of the cost of the millage, and they're getting back, you know, similar amount for their investment. In Delta Township, in both the 12-year millage we're finishing up and the proposed next 6 years, Delta Township is paying 50% of the millage, and we're getting 30% of the services back for that. And that's a huge amount of money and a huge discrepancy that I don't think Delta is going to be very supportive of a millage at this, structured like this. And I think if we're going to go forward with, you know, putting something on the ballot, it needs to be something that we think can pass. And I'm fairly certain that this is going to go over very well in Delta Township because, like everyone else, you know, we're millaged to death, and we've got the bank drain, and we've got a public safety assessment, and you know, we know this, but people are fed up. And in Delta, oftentimes, I think the last road millage we had, Delta pretty much carried the county, right? Delta voted yes. Most of the out-county areas voted no. So I mean, there's a huge disparity between that. And I know that as county commissioners, we're here to look at a county system, and that the smaller townships are going to be, you know, supported by the bigger ones. So in every county, in every state, you have a big population area, a big community that pays a huge chunk of any cost and receives a huge chunk back. And that's how it has to be, and that economy of scale is what makes the whole county have a good road system. But I just don't think, I think that if we agree to some kind of a millage rate, it needs to be realistic in terms, because if it doesn't pass, we don't get anything. So if we put forth a 1.5 millage, my prediction is that it would not pass in Delta this time. And then we don't get anything. So I'm wondering what kind of alternatives there are. Because I mean, in Delta, I mean, we could go back to our own residents and say, you know, instead of paying $25 million for roads, we could pay 18, because that's really all it costs us in Delta. We could do our own millage in Delta to pay for our own roads, right? And then that would be less expensive for a taxpayer in our township. So there's things like that can be done that I don't know how that benefits the rest of the county, but I think there needs to be some, I don't know, are there any alternatives to how these percentages these costs are allocated? Or I feel like we're not getting our fair share of this project. And I think it's, you know, and we need to have some equity if we want a proposal to pass. So I mean, I think there needs to be more discussion about, you know, can certain townships be capped at a certain rate based on, you know, their population or miles or something? Or are there alternatives to how we allocate jobs that are being done? So I hope I'm making sense. That I don't see how this is really equitable for Delta Township.
Oh, okay, Commissioner Whitaker. Pearl, right?
I think Commissioner Whitaker just eloquently explained the situation that I absolutely feel. So you are on recorded YouTube that'll be out to the public in 1 hour. And everything that you just listed, that in the new millage, because it's different than what's been being available to be restored in the last millage of 12 years. is ditches, gravel, bridges, culverts, dust control, and the roads that have already been done would get one treatment. Okay? And that's what you just said on air. Now, I have dealt with people who watch these YouTubes. So when you just showed us the map, that was the 2015 map, Delta had a lot of red, okay, which means there was a lot of attention given to the local roads. Specifically, folks, there's 3 types of funding streams. Local roads are local roads. They're not, you couldn't use the money on the secondary and also like our MDOTs and things. So these had to be in our subdivisions and things such as that. By the time we got to 2025 map, we have hardly any. And you came here, I will repeat again like I did last month, that you assured us back at your fall 2025 report that we were going to have everything in Delta done what needed to be done. Therefore, when I kept saying from last month for the new millage that you wanted to do was culverts and dust controls and what I just read, I kept saying, what's Delta got? 2 culverts? And that's not it. We actually have 3. So what we're looking at in the 2025 is a considerable amount of gravel roads and those culverts. It's indicated right on your colored map. How many culverts did you identify the other day when I asked you? How many culverts are being indicated here that need to be worked on in the county?
Countywide,
Yep, you had a number. I
Yep.
didn't write
I
it
don't
down.
remember what that was, and I don't have that written down, so I don't wanna say and be way off, but there's quite a few, there's hundreds,
Yep, it was hundreds.
yeah.
Okay, so when we look at this new millage, the Delta people that watch this, that call me, that live in the place that I run to in the Kroger store, I am, to be honest with you, I understand that we have to have a new millage to address some of these situations that aren't going to be able to be done because you can't use the primary money to do the locals, and the key is locals. So they're going to understand. And we did agree to keep our police force and get a special assessment to do that just in September. And we've done several different things. But we have other millages too that are going to have to be on this ballot. And from what I understand, we got some on the Eaton Rapids side that's going to have already some millages that other people were aware of. I'm aware of over in the Grand Ledge area and things like that that are coming out. And again, I will say we don't know what the schools and all the public schools want to pop up. So I'm willing to go with 1. I'm just not willing to go with a repeat of 1.5 when I'm looking at maps and I'm getting lists from you of what needs to be done in the new millage. And I'm willing to help the county out to a certain extent with the Delta funds, but 1 mill is as high as Jeannie's commissioner's going.
I'd like to jump in here, and I would like to say this is probably a pretty dangerous road that we're going down if we're going to start segregating road funding in a millage. However, Delta is more than capable of, like running their own millage for their roads. I don't know, but I go back It may be true, it may be false, it may be a myth, but I can go back 3 or 4 years, and in my district, I would hear people complaining about funding the sheriff's department for Delta. It was the same thing. Why do I have to pay for the sheriff's department when I don't have any sheriffs? Well, because Delta has the most amount of people, and they need more coverage. They needed more deputies, which the sheriff chose not to cover the out county. I'm just saying is like, this could get very dangerous for the county if we took this approach, because we're in one boat, and it could get very dangerous, and we could all end up with some terrible roads and some terrible sheriff's coverage. The next one was DeRosa, and then this to me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that comment, and I agree 100% with that. Yeah, I mean, to your point, Commissioner Wright, how many gravel roads do you have in Delta Township? Can you name one?
I can, at least the ones I drive on.
In Delta Township? See, we've got townships that are primarily dirt road. And they're looking at Delta Township and they say, you know, there's a lot of pavement up there and we've got none of it. So Delta Township residents are invited to go anywhere in the county and see what the condition of the roads are outside their own home. Because we don't have the advantage or the wherewithal to pave every road in Eaton County and then maintain them. So regraveling, dust, all that stuff costs money, and you're right, Delta Township residents don't see that because they don't have to utilize that. But what they've got are some very, very, very nice roads up in Delta Township that other townships don't have.
And they pay half the bill of the whole county for that.
Well, but this is the way it works. Delta Township, I'm sure when we laid out Eaton County, we didn't say, you know, that one township is going to have 1/3 of the voters and probably 3/4 of the paved roads. So let's not charge them. But the reality is this money, this millage is for everybody countywide because everybody can use those roads. I'll tell you one thing Delta Township does not have, the gravel train traffic that Eaton Township has that beats up the roads unmercifully. And we were talking about large trucks and the payload getting heavier. You're not going to see them in your residential streets in Delta Township. You're going to see them in the out county, quote unquote. So there's different uses for the roads depending on where you live. And if you don't see that other use, that's because you're not going out there and looking. So we've got equipment in out county, quote unquote, ag equipment that takes up almost the full width of the road. You'll never see that in Delta Township. But we have it out in the out county. So there's different requirements depending on where you live. I'm not sympathetic to the Delta Township people, as Commissioner Barber mentioned, that they have to pay extra for roads because for a long time we were paying extra for their police protection. It's a trade-off. We all compromise when we pay our taxes. So I'm in favor of the 1.5. I think it's done well for us. I'd like to see it as a 10-year millage, not a 6-year. There's some projects that I know, I mean, 5 Point Highway across the Battle Creek River is one we've been talking about forever. And there's other areas in Eaton County that we should be taking a look at too, not because the road itself is bad, but what surrounds it. We've got areas that flood regularly that we need to address, but we got to have the money to do it. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Toomey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First question. At the 1.5 mils annually, what's an average homeowner going to pay on that?
Oh, I don't know that number off the top of my head. I don't know what the average
Somebody
value of a house is.
1.5 mils on what's the average SUV like?
I mean, we haven't run it for anything, but we've talked about maybe doing a tax calculator for all the millages like we did in the past. And then with feedback that we got in our November, trying to do it to where you have like 5 different homes, 500,000, 300,000, 250,000. So that way people can see like a snapshot, but we don't have that together today. Typically, I run those through Vandermark because I like them to be right, because if you tell somebody their tax bill is going to be something and it's not, they're not happy. So I would prefer somebody who's a level 3 assessor doing, level 4 assessor doing the math on that, so.
Okay. Continuing on. So I would just say that I understand where our Delta Township residents and our Delta Township representatives are coming from. I really do, right? So I would just say I live in Windsor Township and I do my grocery shopping over in Delta. I go to the West Lansing Meijer all the time, right? I enjoy driving on those Delta roads. I enjoy driving on those Windsor Township roads. I drive to Charlotte to come here. I drive all over the county. And so to me, as somebody that lives here, I do view that as I'm paying this holistically because I do use the roads all over the county. I drive every which way here. And I think that's really important that we keep that in mind. And once again, I would say that even at 1.5 mils for any resident here, if they are driving to a different township like I do to do my grocery shopping and they hit a pothole and it costs them $1,000 to fix that rim, fix that tire, they don't get to work that day. I view this as a great insurance policy to say, hey, annually, I'm going to pay X amount a year, which we don't have the exact number on, but I guarantee it is much less than $1,000 to make sure that no matter what part of this county I go to, I'm going to be able to get to work on time. I'm going to be able to do my grocery shopping. I don't get hit with this unexpected expense, this unexpected bill. And so that's really important to me, especially as we talk about affordability long-term and keeping our infrastructure in a good place long-term. And so I think I'm going to be with Commissioner Drosha here again. I'd like to move this at 1.5 mils for 10 years as a long-term investment in the whole of the county, in affordability and our long-term financial future, and not having to go back and repave these roads if they get in really bad condition, no matter where they are in the county. So I'll move that, and that's my take.
Do we got a? What? What do you mean, the month?
He didn't see you.
Oh, okay.
He didn't.
Yeah. Do you want to add that to your motion?
I'll just do
On what ballot? That's really I was going to ask you, because currently you're asking for August, right?
let's do August, and we can discuss, and we can
Okay, so you got a motion.
1.5 mils, 10 years, August.
All right. Do I have a second? All right. I got Commissioner Drosha for a second, but Commissioner Whitaker wanted to ask some more questions or make a statement.
You don't have to tell me any of these things, right? I've been a commissioner for 13, 14 years now, and so I understand how this all works with roads. And the problem is that the average person who's going to vote may not feel like, and if everybody felt like this, if we could get people to understand the value of these things, it would be worth it. But people don't vote based on knowledge because we don't have any way of educating people about the value of these roads. If we wanted to pass a millage on its merit alone, we'd have to do a lot of educating. People aren't looking at that. They're looking at how much money am I going to pay. That's how people are voting. They're not voting on, oh, I want to have good quality roads in my neighborhood. They're not voting on, we've already invested $62 million in our roads. They're voting on how much am I paying, and I'm getting taxed and millaged to death, and I don't want to pay for anything else. So if we want to have these great roads and have a millage to support them, it's got to pass. So I think we should think about that. I mean, I don't think we should do any less than 1.5. If we're going to do a millage, we should do a millage that's going to do it right. And then I think Matt has educated me that way. But I also think we have to be realistic about, if it doesn't pass, then nobody gets anything. And so I just want to point that out, that it's really not about my understanding of how roads work or how our understanding is as commissioners or community leaders. It's about getting every individual voter to see that and think about it not just from, from something other than just their checkbook or their, their bank account, because that's what motivates people to vote right now. It's their anger and it's their fed upness of government, and I just don't see a lot of people being reasonable about wanting to, pay more than, twice as much as everybody else in the county for the roads. I'm not agreeing with that. I want you to know that for sure. I support roads. I understand what everyone is saying, but I don't think that's the perception in the community.
Unfortunately, if the millage doesn't pass, then we will be having a further discussion later about why the roads are deteriorating. I got Scott Hansen in and I got.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner
Going back a little bit, Matt, concerning re-graveling, you said about every 10 to 12 years for that project?
Yeah, so, the 1.5 mills would put 800 cubic yards per mile every 10 years.
Okay, my next question would be, when doing so, will that cut down on potholes and washboard roads on dirt roads?
It should, this has been a really bad spring for gravel roads all over the southern part of the state. But new gravel holds up better and can be maintained better than old gravel or no gravel, so it should help, but is it gonna completely eliminate all potholes and gravel roads? No.
And then also, like, when you do re-gravel, is that a certain mixture of, clay particles versus stone and everything, or how is that determined on
Yeah. It's a
quality?
standard MDOT specification, it's called 23A gravel, and we actually use a 23A modified. Road gravel needs the fines to hold everything together and then to absorb and hold on to the chloride that's sprayed on it for the dust control. So you need those fines. Clay is the best fines you can use because that really helps hold the moisture. But some gravel doesn't have as much clay, has a little more silt that doesn't quite hold the moisture as good, so. It kind of depends on where the pit comes from. As long as it meets the specifications, we use it because it meets the specifications, but different gravel is gonna act differently at different times of the year.
And do we have enough gravel pits here in Eaton County to cover those type of material that would be needed?
We'll find out, I guess. I know right now we're doing okay, and there's another one on 5 Point that is in the works, and one possibly on Kinsel as well, so just a couple brand new ones that may be coming up.
Okay, thank you. But I do have another question concerning the millage. I'm representing the Calamo and Carmel Township, which are primarily farmers in that area, and they don't like millages because they're getting charged on their property as compared to an urban area that of a residence or something. And so I'm not sure how this will go over, even though they want good roads or want their roads at least that the ones that are not paved to be graded and everything. I know usually after a rain on my road, usually within a few days are out there doing that. And but yet, within a week, it's gone back to what it was previously. So I don't know if re-graveling would help that situation or not. Thank you.
Commissioner Pearl, right.
To Commissioner Toomey's resolution, I think it needs to be to discuss which month it goes on and why it might not help the county here on our premises in our budget to be on the August ballot, because we have other millages that directly affect our budget that need to be passed for operations. If not, it's going to be out of our general fund.
I was going to ask you, Matt, did you have a chance, per our conversation yesterday, did you have a chance to contact your board to see if they were open to moving it to November? Because the E-Tran millage is on the November ballot, so it'd be more like a transportation on the November versus the August, where I think coming this month or next month, you're going to have
April.
the juvenile millage and the 911 millage possibly being on the August ballot, where, to the commissioner's point, is if the juvenile millage doesn't pass, that the county's going to have to find those funds out of our general fund pot to fund that. Our required funding is going to increase quite a bit, and the juvenile if it doesn't pass, so.
I did not get a chance to talk to the board from last night, but from the discussions that requested the August ballot, I don't think they would be opposed to that. They were looking at both, and they thought August might be better, but I don't think they would be opposed.
Yes, Commissioner Toomey.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I actually didn't think about putting transportation on the ballot as a whole. I think that could be, and this is me talking as a person. I'm going to be very supportive of funding transportation, whether that's roads, buses, whatever else. And I think that could make a lot of sense from a perspective when me or any other commissioner wants to go out and advocate for one of these things. However, I would like to hear what administration has to say in terms of what makes the most amount of sense logistically and all these things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'll just speak on a couple general pieces. Right off the bat, my recommendation from administration would be to do it in November, keep the transportation together. Juvenile and dispatch are kind of human services / public safety, really, elements that we want to group together. So I would request that. I'd also say, you know, there are times where we're one community and there are times when we're one county, and I think roads are one of those. As I think through it, the economic vitality that comes out of Delta, having good roads leading to it, shouldn't be understated for the businesses that a lot of people love traveling to Delta Township. I mean, who doesn't love going to Horrocks and having a beer while you're going shopping, right? You know, so I just, you know, adding that to the whole piece. And I know when you look at the amount of revenue that's collected in total from the millage, but if you compare the amount expended in Delta, it's closer to a 74% match back from what was actually collected out of the township. So I think when you're looking at it as a whole, hopefully we can have those conversations with residents, because when the road infrastructure is strong, the whole community wins. And that includes the businesses and the folks that are the center of economic activity for Delta Township. So I just would be remiss if I didn't mention that administratively, we're supportive of the 10-year and the 1.5, because as someone who lives in Ingham County every day on the way home, I know when I've exited Eaton County, similarly when I go to Calhoun, like we have nice roads in Eaton County, and that's come from the dedication and commitment that has been made. So I'm very supportive of the proposal as it sits.
Commissioner Toomey.
Yeah, and I just meant to mention one more thing to Commissioner Hansen's point, talking about folks, especially farmers who say, hey, I don't want my taxes raised. I get that. I hate raising taxes as much as literally anybody. Nobody wants to pay more in taxes. I would like to just point out once again, though, that this is the exact same millage rate that we had on the previous 12-year millage, which we can show both in data and both in just folks that go out and drive these roads every day, has been very, very successful. And I'm really glad to see that. It's a great return on investment. So I'd just like to point that out as well, is that this is not a tax raise. This is not going to be an additional burden on folks. You know, because once again, I think we do want to be very mindful of people's pocketbooks. And yeah, so this is a renewal of that same rate, and for a lesser time frame even on top of that. So.
Okay.
Oh, and I would love to amend to November as well if somebody would support that.
Support.
I just wanted to add one other thing. Thank you I wanted to touch on that. Also, the county is doing what we can to help lower people's property tax bills. So we have a jail millage and a medical care facility that were related to building improvements, and we're also allowed to support staff in the case of the jail. Neither of those are being discussed to be renewed. So this would be the last winter tax where that would be levied. My encouragement to communities is don't see that as an opportunity to pass your local millage. People need relief. We're not seeking to fill that with another millage, because we hear the community loud and clear, and we're trying to respond in the ways that we can. The jail is 0.6983, medical care is 0.1246. So conceivably next winter, if that held, that's like a 0.8229 reduction in homeowner property taxes because of the decision of this body to not take up more, and the people need it. We're also advocating for additional money for Bank Intercounty Drain. We know that that's $55, $60 million project has been massive for the community. We have not let up on that. It's in our federal and our state, which you'll get a report on that. As well as we're trying to secure $2.5 million right now for that project that would go for immediate relief to these homeowners. So with the capacity we have, we are advocating at every level to relieve the burden of property taxes where we can. In the end of the day, I don't think roads is where you do it, but we're trying the ways that we can. So I just wanted to add that part of the conversation, especially with a lot of the residents. Will probably watch this if they're interested in the discussion about roads.
Okay, so you amended your motion, so the motion you had, we're still in discussion, but the motion you had was to approve the 1.5 for 10 years and move it, because it was requested for the August ballot, to move it to the November ballot. We have a second on that motion. Is there any further discussion on this topic? Okay, seeing none, then I would, with that motion, all in favor, signify with aye. Aye.
Vote on the amendment, right?
I mean, yes, on the amended motion, excuse me. Yes. All right. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, that carries. Matt, is there any closing statement you would like to make?
No,
No vote
I-
until you couldn't
that-
figure out whether it was amended or not. So
Right, I
I'm
don't
a
feel like-
no.
Okay, all right. All right,
Okay.
you all,
The amendment was to November, now
okay, all right.
the first motion is what I. So now you're gonna vote on the first motion for it to be 1.5 mils for 10 years.
Okay, so the previous vote we did was for the amendment. All right, so I made a mistake. All right, so now we're gonna do the vote for the 1.5 mils for 10 years. In November.
Well, we already did the amendment.
Yeah, we already did the November amendment. Yeah. So, all right, so all in favor for 1.5 for 10 years, signify with aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, so it sound like you got 2 noes and the rest of a yes. So that means it carries. All right,
No, I just appreciate everybody's time, and we will, if it passes, we'll do our best to spend the money well and take care of the residents of Eaton County as best we can.
okay.
Thanks for all your work on this, Matt.
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Christensen.
I just wanted to give a shout out. I saw something online this week that there is an employee by the name of Steve Whitaker within your department. He just celebrated his 50th anniversary working for Eaton County Road Commission. That is phenomenal.
5-0?
So,
5-0. He's
I've never met the man, but congratulations to him. That's great.
He's worked there longer than half of our employees have been alive.
Amazing.
So it was pretty cool. It was a very good thing. He actually got a Senator, wow. Huh? No. Oh, wow.
I don't know, just any senator.
Anyways.
Oh,
no,
go with
he
it.
was he was US. Yeah, no, the other one.
Lotkin.
I was up to, I was at the office.
Just go with it, come on.
Anyways, actually did a resolution that they read at the US House, so.
Oh.
Well, and he came and presented it to him, so.
Yeah.
Very nice.
That's amazing.
Okay, Commissioner Toomey, so we can wrap this up.
Yep, I just wanted to say once again, thank you for coming up with this additional information that we asked for last month. Great presentation again, great information. We've had 2 great ones today. I can't always say that. Sometimes I do suffer a little bit through these, but this is fantastic, and thank you for being responsive to all of our requests for information, so.
It was Tom Barrett, by the way.
Oh.
I was like, oh.
We'll edit that one out. No, I'm kidding.
So, all right, so at this time, I'm going to call a recess for 10 minutes. We'll come back at 11:30.
Hallelujah.
Okay,
Should
4
we,
o'clock.
let's put 4.
Okay, I'm good.
Will you work with him on that?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Construction code / planning and zoning, please come
Can you get me another?
Yeah, and if I may, thank you. If I may, if I can do if you guys have any questions on the planning and zoning annual report. If you don't, I'm gonna excuse Miss Miller and let her go back to work. Okay, thank you. Thanks for nothing. As far as the construction code side of it, we're pretty well on track for this time of year. If you compare 25 to 26, electrical might be up, plumbing might be down, but as a whole, we're about average. So I'm anticipating, I know we've got some projects coming up throughout the county that we'll be getting permits for. So I'm anticipating at least a normal year, hopefully a little bit busier than normal, but at least a normal year. Do you guys have any questions on the construction code side of it?
Seeing none.
So the other thing, I've been working with the controller's office and technology services on body cameras for all of my inspectors. We're supposed to be getting a quote from the director of technology services.
We've got it.
Ben has it, it sounds like. Of what that will cost my department to purchase the body cameras and retain all that information. We're also working on a policy for my department as far as wearing the body cameras, turning them off, how long we're gonna keep that information from each inspection. Part of that policy is that we will wear them before we get out of the trucks. We will turn them on. If there are people on site, we will notify them that we have a body camera on. We will do the inspection. We will leave the camera on until we get back in our trucks and then turn it off until we arrive at the next inspection. It's just some of the highlights. There's more to it than that, and we will put that in front of you guys when we're completely done with it. Claudine has a draft right now that we're still playing with, so.
And,
Oh, you guys have it too.
and I'll just say, this is direct response to feedback, and, construction codes is a difficult job. Anytime anybody has to go on somebody else's land and tell them they have to redo something or they have to use a different method, it's difficult. And so this is really to minimize misunderstandings, misspeaking, or things along those lines. And it's as much as for our construction code employees as it is for members of the public. So if there's a dispute over how something went down or what was said, this will be a really easy way that it's available for a set period of time, so that we could just go back and look at the footage and take the burden off of trying to address complaints that may come up. Because some of them will potentially be unfounded, and if there are some where we need to have up training or something like that, this just makes it easier for everybody involved. So the investment is not a lot from a money standpoint. It's actually less than $5,000 a year for a 5-year contract for 6 cameras, which is enough for the whole team. So we'll be bringing the policy plus that through committee process next month, and we hope to implement that probably this year would be the request, so we could get the ball rolling on procurement.
Safety and customer service.
100%. Yep.
And I would like to just state that when I started talking to the controller's office about this, I went back to my inspectors, and they are all very much in favor of it, and very excited about it, because there are a lot of unknowns when we go out, so we all kind of walk on eggshells sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's all I have on body cams for right now. I believe Mr. Daw.
Say something?
Yes, ma'am.
In the world of today, with everybody putting everything from their lunch on Facebook all the way to these state issues with ice and stuff, I think 100%, if that can be budgeted, you do need that for everybody.
I support.
Yeah, and I don't think, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but from a financial side for my department, I can afford to purchase these cameras. It's just, we obviously have to go through the rest of the process and make sure we have all our ducks in a row before we can. If I could have them in my desk today, I would have them and turn them on.
Okay.
Yep. And we're looking at a quote from Axon, so it builds on our existing tech infrastructure, but it's a non-public safety side, because they not only provide the service, they provide it for others. I think Windsor, you were talking with Bill over at the fire department, and they use it as well. So it's, I think, becoming more normal that it's just easier to eliminate the he said, she said, and like, hey, let's just focus on the business. Yep.
Commissioner Drosha.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too, Chris, am very much in favor of these, and I would caution your department to go to the extra degree of thoroughness when dealing with some of these issues, not just with the people, but with the process, the place. Make sure they get good footage of what's going on if there is a dispute.
Yeah.
So that can be reviewed more thoroughly. But anyway, yeah, again, I'm very much in favor of this.
The draft that's in your packets is just a very rough first draft. We already have a second draft, actually, that's not uploaded. I'll upload that one for Wednesday. But it does have something in there, Mr. Drosha, to your point of they have to go through training, it has to be turned on, it has to be turned off, and it has to have a good unobstructed view while they're wearing it. And those will all be things that are in the policy. We wanted to get a general conception for the policy, and then we'll send it out for a legal review. So you'll get the policy back next month after a legal review and can formally adopt it at that time.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Christensen.
Really quickly, thank you. I think my main question is for you, Ben. You said you're checking with the company that we already utilize and purchase from. Would we get a better rate? I mean, do they do like a bulk thing?
Well, we just renewed our sheriff's office contract, actually, but they're two separate divisions. And honestly, it's good because this one is significantly cheaper than the law enforcement version. So I don't want Axon to think that we would pay more. But the reason it's good is because the file formats are all the same. The adoption of the technology is going to be much easier to implement. I would say in the future, if we went somewhere else for our police services cameras, at that time, I'd recommend we probably do the same thing. So keep all of our body cameras on one ecosystem. And we'll put that in there because when we sole source, we want to make sure we address it and explain it to the public so that they understand there's a reason we're not going to probably go out for 3 bids on this, because there's only 2 companies that do it in Michigan, and we've already made a selection for the larger of the 2 contracts. So that'd be my recommendation. Follow suit with whatever we do with everything else. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Okay. You got anything else?
Yeah, soil erosion, and I think Ben wants to kick off that, and I'll input whatever you need me to input.
Yeah, so we are still working on the soil erosion piece. We were able to identify some comp counties. The difficulty is every county is structured differently. So as we started digging into it, a discussion came up about hiring a firm to do an independent assessment of the soil erosion, and then also, since we're doing that, also have them evaluate the construction code fee schedule. So have a third-party independent analysis of both schedules and then present that back to this body. We have reached out for quotes on a service for that. We have not gotten back yet, but we're requested of 3 companies to give us an evaluation. If you guys are good with that approach, because I would like to maybe do the same process as, even though we adopted a new construction code schedule, I think it'd be good to go back and just show the public, we've had it evaluated at a third party. If there are any that they recommend being less, we bring that back. If more, however, we have those discussions, but at least we just add that additional piece of the context since we're already working on it with the soil erosion. So in concept, we'd look for your guys' agreement that you think that that's a good methodology to approach. Otherwise, we'd have to move ahead with the staff doing the analysis, and we'll have to wrap our heads around how to reconcile the variable structure between the different counties that we found.
And I just felt personally that it would give us an independent view in a bigger overall view so that we could all sit down and look at. I know from my vantage point, some of my fee increases that we did last,
year,
yeah, I was trying to think of the month.
July, I think.
Yeah, that I could make some adjustments to now that we've had them in place for a while. So that's why I had asked Ben and Claudine if we could have an independent study done on all of it.
Any other commissioners have any comments on that? Because if not, I think that silence is consent.
Okay.
I think that's a pretty good idea.
Okay, we'll move forward with that. Appreciate it.
The county did a similar study countywide in 2004, so I think it's due for
I
some
think-
updating.
We're overdue. We're definitely overdue.
Well, just kind of put it into, and I spoke with Ben about this just a little bit ago. I start looking at other counties and some of them, it's all individual townships for the construction code side of it. And some of them, it's countywide, some of them, and it's just way up here and way down here. So it's really hard for me personally to sit there and judge and compare because I have several townships and cities and villages. So it's never apples to apples, if that makes sense.
So that's the update for this month.
Yeah, that's all I have.
I think you're good.
All right, thank you guys. Have a good day.
Yep. Moving on to 12.
Can I back up and ask something?
Yeah. What?
Okay, I just want to know how it's coming with master planning and things like that for our uncharted. Does anybody know anything?
Chris?
Yeah. Well, I guess we shouldn't have let Brandy go. Because
So,
we have a planning and zoning question.
yeah, their question was where are we at with the master plan updating? Do you have anything to add to that? The only thing I would mention is we turned all of that over to Jason Ball with the consulting firm, and he's actively working with the townships. I had a report last month that they still were on the path to be done by June 30th, and I have not talked to Jason, but Chris and I will make a note.
We have not talked to him either. I know he is still actively working with the, I think, 7 townships. And that they are, I actually spoke to a township board member. He called me on a whole nother subject. And he did say that they were on track. And I didn't ask any more questions because I didn't want to seem nosy.
I was just checking
Yeah.
in because I actually got by the commissioner in another county, and I said, well, we extended the funding for the planning, being done until June 30th. So I guess that's how far they're funded.
Yeah, and they all know that. I mean, I don't think any of them have any intentions in coming and ask us to extend it. They understand that is a hard date and.
Okay,
They have to be
I
ready.
mean, when I'm out and people ask me different questions, I like to give them the correct answer.
No, I understand.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
No.
All right, have a good day.
Hey, resource recovery. Jared?
Good morning. I was asked today to go through what I need board approval for, and you do have a copy of the Department of Resource Recovery's report in your packet. And listed in today's agenda, we do have the resolution to approve the Calhoun County MOU extension. And I'll just describe, there's further information on all of this in the report. And I'll just briefly describe these as we go through them. The Department of Resource Recovery has engaged with the Calhoun County agency responsible for recycling. Currently, they are in the process of building their own facility, actually modeled after our facility here in Eaton County. And before their facility gets built, we were asked by Calhoun County to receive the materials from their program. So we receive only plastics, actually, no metal or glass. So just recyclable plastics from Calhoun County. We do charge them. Those prices are listed in the MOU. So everything they come deliver and they pay for delivery, and we charge them per pound and invoice them. And with that, we process their materials, and then the department is able to sell those materials and retain the revenue for that to fund our own programs here in Eaton County. And so this is just a renewal. The MOU had expired, and the department is seeking to extend the MOU, not until the end of this fiscal year, but the following fiscal year, so in 2027. So this would cover about a year and a half of the agreement.
Excuse me, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jared, for being here. Excuse me. Who's responsible for transporting the materials from Calhoun to Eaton County?
Calhoun County.
So that expenditure is all their own?
Correct.
It is separate from this agreement here for materials, that's correct?
Correct.
All right,
It's in
thank you.
the MOU that states that they do the transportation.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, so we don't have to worry about going down and picking them up for them or
Nope.
any additional charges. Thank you.
I'd like to do, what's the board want to do? You want to do, you want them to go through these and then we vote in mass? Or, because I'm, all these MOUs, or do you want to do one by one? Because if you want to do one by one, I need a motion.
I would move, Mr. Chair, that we do them as a group. I don't think there's anything in here that we have to dissect individually.
Support. Okay. All right. All right, then move on to the next one.
All right, and then next on your agenda here, we have the resolution amending the Eaton County Resource Recovery Agricultural Plastics Program. And initially, this was a pilot program that has been running for several years here in Eaton County. And being an agricultural county, I think it's really important that we serve our farmers and our rural communities. This program, through the pilot, has grown to be very successful, and here in the resolution, last fiscal year, we were able to receive and process over 60,000 pounds of materials that would have ended up in the landfill. And so we enjoy working with our farmers and some of our businesses here, and the only change that the department is seeking to make in the original pilot program, we do have a processing fee of about exactly 8 cents per pound, sorry. And in terms of cost to the department and in terms of processing, we don't make a lot of money on the agricultural plastics. It's considered low value by the industry, but they still take it. So we would like the 8 cents per pound to remain in place for in-county. However, the department has been receiving increasing requests to do out-of-county agricultural plastic recycling. I don't believe that Eaton County should be responsible for other counties' agricultural plastic materials. We want to focus specifically on Eaton County. And so to that effect, because there's extra work for the department with coordination and processing, that we would like to have a out-county fee. We don't want to ban neighboring counties from bringing their agricultural plastics to us to recycle, but we would like to increase that fee to 12 cents per pound. And that would be the only change to the agricultural plastics program we're seeking to make. And this resolution would seek to move it from a pilot program to a permanent program within the department.
All right, next one?
Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry about that.
You got old.
I was distracted. Go ahead, Commissioner Prowright, and then I'll come over this side of the table.
Jared, is that the same thing as, that they'll be bringing it to you and we don't have to get involved in the pickup or any of that?
Correct. So the out-of-county would be fully responsible for transportation and delivery. And But we would have to schedule and coordinate their delivery times, which would add extra administrative costs to us. So, yes, all the out-county agricultural plastics are fully financially responsible for bringing their materials to us.
So the resolution that he's talking about right now is just to amend the program we already have from a pilot program to a continuing program. The next resolution he's gonna cover is for Washtenaw County to participate in the ag plastic program. But this resolution is simply changing it from a pilot to an agricultural continuation.
And charging the 12, and charging.
And increasing the fees.
Yeah, the 12 cents.
Yep, and increasing the fees, yes.
Okay, the next question would be, in the other counties, you know, up north, whatever, UP, are any of the other counties doing a coordination like this in charging 12 cents a pound or whatever? You know what I'm saying is, or are we just different?
From what I understand with the agricultural plastics program, Eaton County, we were actually the original pilot. So we were working with the Michigan Recycling Coalition and the Michigan Farm Bureau. Ideally, we would have seen these programs come up across the state with other counties or township recycling programs. Emmett County is the only other county that I know of that is participating, and they do a lot of like boat wrap and things like that. So it's a similar material. So, for example, our department, we can take boat wrap. We just don't have a lot of lakes here in Eaton County. And so because we're centrally located and we're in southern Michigan, where a lot of the population is, we've been receiving requests from other counties. And when we receive those requests, I encourage them to make their own programs in their counties.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, because I didn't know if we're changing the rate, you know, if we were comparable, because for other things, we just did construction code, you know, got to compare. So I was just asking.
Yep.
Thank you, Jared.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Toomey?
I was just going to say, and maybe I'm reading this incorrectly, the MOU with Washtenaw County has the reimbursement rate listed at 8 cents per pound, so that would need to be 12, right?
Correct. And when we were going to get to that next, I was going to discuss this arrangement with Washtenaw County would be in place and was negotiated before this resolution. And so the department is able to charge the 8 cents, but hereafter, if this resolution passes, we will be charging 12 cents per pound for Out County. So we've been in discussions with Washtenaw County for several months now. And this was actually one of the motivations to change our policy and make our program more permanent with the Out County extra charge to it.
And I just want to clarify, because Out County.
I mean, sorry.
Services, people think of and is non-Delta Township. What we mean is any non-Eaton County, correct? Yes. Out of
county.
You're good.
more
I just
disciplined.
didn't want people
So
to
I'm
get
sorry,
triggered.
Yes.
The MOU ends June 1st, 26, is what it says on here.
It's
Yes.
for a one-time delivery, though.
Oh, okay. So this is like, and then, so this is only through June 1st, 26. After that, if Washtenaw wants to do it again, it's 12 cents.
Yes, correct. And so the MOU for Washtenaw County, I'll just cover some of that confusing aspects of it real quick. They're doing a annual event for their farmers next month or this month, where they're collecting the plastic, and then they're gonna bring it in one large load and deliver it to the county. So it's a one-time delivery, and it's an event. And so instead of getting several loads throughout the week or the month, we're coordinating with the Washtenaw County Conservation District to get one singular load to lessen the burden on the department and our program. So this will be a one-time fee, and the MOU reflects that this agreement is no longer valid after its completion or the date listed there.
Lovely. Thank you. I'm a happy camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jared, given that we won't have oversight over any other counties processing this material, this agricultural plastic, and as I recall, it was, well, not extensive requirements, but it needs to be very clean, and there's some other criteria involved. If we collect that for other counties and it's not up to snuff, what are we going to do with it?
Well, I would like to see the department move into more agreements with out-of-county arrangements, because we need to have some sort of legal recourse when something like you just said happens. And I don't think the county or the department should be liable for violations of guidelines. So on our website, we have very clear guidelines about how we accept the agricultural plastics and how they should be delivered. And if anyone doesn't adhere to those guidelines, we currently don't have any recourse legally to deal with it. So if somebody comes and dumps a bunch of plastic, we're liable for it. So we want to have as much discretion over the process. And if there is any violation of guidelines, that we will have a process in place to address that. Because again, I don't think it should be cost the people of Eaton County any more money.
I agree with you. So that brings me to that question of 12 cents a pound. Will that 12 cents a pound cover the possibility of rejection, sorting, rebaling, and all that other stuff?
It'll definitely help, but through further MOUs, with our ag plastic program, we do require that anybody wanting to bring ag plastic contact the department and arrange for the delivery. And so within county, we haven't had any issues so far. We've been really happy with the program, and so is anybody participating. But we do foresee issues, like you said, where if people just want to get rid of their ag plastic, they need to follow the guidelines, and we would like to have stronger legal language to be able to have some recourse there with any sort of violation of guidelines.
Okay. And then my last question is, if we send this out in bulk, assuming a semi-trailer load, would they reject an entire load because of some contamination, or would they sort it bale by bale and just reject a bale? And
It would be by bale basis.
okay,
correct.
so we wouldn't get stuck with a whole semi-load just because something wasn't right.
No, we wouldn't.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Yep.
So as far as Washtenaw County is concerned, the guidelines about how the plastic can be turned into us is part of the MOU. Jared's correct, it doesn't have any impact if they don't follow it, but the MOU does specifically say they have to follow those guidelines. But it doesn't give a mechanism to charge them more if they don't.
I think if that becomes an issue, we will deal with it in the sense of we will just not do business with you, or we create a mechanism where we can charge you per unit of contamination or something like that. But I think the program so far with the one county that you've partnered with hasn't been an issue. So, but I think if we need to be cognizant of that, and we'll address it quickly. But it's pretty simple. We don't have to do business with any of these folks. So if they're not being good stewards and good faith partners, then we don't have to, and they can figure it out themselves. But if we can make it work, let's do it.
Well, they're not just coming dropping it off. I mean, we have a hired person out there.
Correct.
So that person should be inspecting the load prior to them dropping it off.
Agreed.
So, okay, and any other discussion on that? All right. So that's, so you did Calhoun, the amendment for the agricultural plastic, and then the Washtenaw County. Do we want to do those three on together?
There was a motion for that earlier.
And
Okay.
then there's a few more.
He's still got E and F to go.
Okay, well, skip over the mobile trailer and then go to F, so we can vote on all those together.
All right, and so the MOUs between Clinton and Berry County, these are routine and standard. Many years ago, before my time, Eaton County was the fiduciary for this grant. Eagle likes to see counties working together, and when you work together, you're more likely to receive funding. So historically, the department's partnered with Clinton County, and Berry County. And so these MOUs are agreements for us applying for the scrap tire grant as the fiduciary and to be able to pay out the sums to Berry and Clinton County for their portion of the grant.
We got any discussion, any questions? Okay. All right, so we have a motion of support to approve these MOUs. No further discussion? All in favor, signify with aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you on that. And then I guess we talk about mobile trailer.
Yes, and so the department is seeking, we want to partner with local municipalities and townships as much as we can. However, due to staffing issues and the expenses of staffing, in the past, the department has used independent contractors to fill gaps in labor requirements. For our recycling trailer, we do have a very high volume in our Bellevue Olivet area for recycling. We're there every Wednesday, 2 to 6 p.m. Currently, we have one staff member going out, and we are seeking additional help from a local community member, specifically Randy Gardner. And this contract would just cover, in very basic language, being present at the site and working with our staff to serve customers and residents, sorting their recycling and answering any questions they have about recycling and our programs. And when the department did its math, and we've worked with Ben and Claudine a little bit on this, we're looking at a cost of less than $3,000 a year per fiscal year, and actually closer to $2,500 for the fiscal year. So 25, 26 fiscal year. And the department does have funds to cover that $2,500. And with board approval, we'll be working with the controller's office and Melissa to do any budget amendments necessary to provide funding for this.
Yes, Commissioner Grosha.
So to clarify, Jared, we want to pay an independent contractor to haul these materials, is that correct?
No, the independent contractor would only be responsible for going on site. We have our Eaton County staff driving the vehicle down. They would not be using any county vehicles, any county equipment. It would be solely for assisting residents sorting their recycling for the trailer. They will be responsible for their own transportation to the site and their own materials and et cetera. And
So this
so,
is just compensation for being on site?
correct.
All right, thank you.
4 hours a week, correct?
Yes,
Is that, so 4 hours a week?
up to 5
And it
hours.
allows either Jared or Debbie to take the trailer. The trailer takes 2 people to monitor when they take it out. And this allows either Debbie or Jared to take the trailer because this person's meeting them on site in Bellevue. So it frees up their time so one of them can do something else with that 4 hours.
Thank you.
Access to that corner of the county, correct?
Mhm.
Right, so
Yeah.
you've got Sunfield and you've got Eaton Rapids, so this is really about giving access to the hub and spoke model for that corner.
Correct.
Commissioner Mott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does this have to do, you mentioned volume, so does this have to do with because of the volume, or is it something you want to implement, talking about the hub and spoke model, is to get this kind of going, or? Because
Yeah.
they have someone out there, you mentioned Randy, right?
Correct.
And they have bins, so is it because of the volume?
Yes, we have a lot of participation down in the Bellevue Olivet area. And ideally, as we grow these programs out, we would like to see participation with local governments and seeing how we can work with them to help staff or advertise or help promote our programs in any way. as we're bringing county resources.
So your
to these
idea would be to expand this?
Yes, it would help us as we grow in popularity. And spring's coming up, and so typically from Bellevue Olivet, we've grown to about 2,000 pounds a week of materials, and we see that growing even more this year.
Okay.
So for one person to handle several dozen cars with a few thousand pounds is a lot to ask. So any assistance in that process would be very helpful.
Okay, good. No, I'm glad that trailer and truck, that whole thing, I mean, when we made that decision, we were hoping that this was gonna be the case. That-
Right.
Yeah, so glad to hear it.
Bellevue Township no longer pays this individual. So he's been volunteering with the department. So this is just an effort to get him on staff and the commitment that he is a contract employee and that he will meet them there rather than just a volunteer kind of a basis. So that's part of the reason. And then, as Ben mentioned, the hub and spoke. So this is an area of the county that literally has no other options for recycling. So the trailer's going to Eaton Rapids, it kind of covers that quadrant. It's in Bellevue, it covers that quadrant. And then the upper, Delta has, opportunities. And then the recycling center is in Sunfield. So it kind of all lends to that hub and spoke thing, but with the trailer instead of an actual building.
Yes, Commissioner Hanson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would this also cover special events, for instance, in Calamo Township? They're planning on on May 9th, a cleanup day where they're going to be getting a couple of dumpsters that you could also be there for that type of an event to help maybe alleviate things going into a dumpster that could be recycled?
Ideally, well, this would be specifically for the Bellevue Olivet Center. We do have our spring cleanup event on May 9th, and typically that's going to be several hundred people. And so between staffing and scheduling, we are very limited on that weekend of May 9th. So I don't believe this contractor would cover that. And any other discussions with cleanup events, the department is happy to participate pending our schedule and staffing ability. And so on May 9th, we will have our spring cleanup event in Delta Township with 2 staff members. And then that day, we also have Sunfield Recycling Center open for operations. And so we would have to work with staff and see about being able to service the spring cleanup events in Calamo. And so we welcome further discussion about that and being able to staff that. But something like this will free up staff time instead of spending hours in Bellevue. Our staff would have extra time to cover events throughout the county.
So because this committee oversees the Resource Recovery Department, if the committee in concept is in favor of moving forward with this, it would go to Ways and Means on Friday for a review of the budget and a budget amendment if necessary. So if everybody's okay in concept, that's where it would go.
All right. Do we even have a motion yet? Oh, okay. Do we have a motion? I'll move it. Yeah, I move that he goes ahead and yeah, that it goes to Ways and Means. Did you say you support? Yeah, okay. So I got motion and support on the floor. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor signify with aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. All right, thank you.
I want to say before you leave that your Delta Township event for recycling works really nicely.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited to work with Marcus and do it all again, so, yep. And we open registration on Monday for our events. So keep an eye out. We're gonna send an email, send a link out, and please register. Tell all of your districts to come recycle with our department. Thank you.
It's wonderful, you just sign in, somebody's with a clipboard, drive around. Gone.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we got Parks.
Good morning. So my department report is in the packet on page 56. So for starters, we're looking for a resolution to approve our DNR trust fund grant application. This year, we would be partnering with, I want to say, Tri-County to acquire the rail line that goes from Charlotte over towards Crandall Park.
So this is the project we've reported on before here. Tri-County Regional Planning has invested several $1,000s in this project over the last 2 years to try and get everything all wrapped up so that this rail could be purchased and turned into a trail. It doesn't quite get to Crandall, it stops just short of it. However, our desire would be to obtain it now through the DNR Trust Fund Acquisition Grant and then try and figure out how to get it to Crandall later. Unfortunately, you'll notice that there are yellow lines in the resolution for a cost. We have a meeting with Tri-County Regional Planning and some other people this afternoon, so we will have an actual amount to put in here for the board meeting next week. I can tell you the property appraised at $875,000. There is a 25% match with the DNR Trust Fund, so at a minimum, the application would be for $875,000, but with 25% of that being our match funding for the project. Tri-County Regional Planning would like to look into applying for the development of the trail at the same time. I've indicated to them that the county most likely would not be interested in paying the 25% match for the actual construction or development of the trail. So we're going to talk about that a little more this afternoon. And if they can come up with other funding options that would contribute to that 25% match, then the amount for the grant application may be more.
Okay.
Claudine, would some of that money come from our parks millage?
The match would, yes.
Okay, so we have that as you're looking right now at, because you got applications out as of last month. So
For the community grant, that has not gone out yet, but the community grant applications will go out this month.
Oh, okay, but, okay, so then the next one, where in the parks millage then are you looking at securing the 25% match?
There is funding available in the parks budget.
In the actual parks budget? Okay.
Yeah, from the millage, but yes, there is funding for the 25% match is over $200,000, but there is funding in the parks budget for it, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Grosh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a conversation with Claudine earlier this week about this particular thing. And this railroad that they're talking about, it doesn't, it extends beyond what we need to the west and beyond what we need to the east. So those portions that we won't be using, even though they're going to be purchased, they won't be developed. Is that correct?
Well, it depends. If we could work out a lease agreement with the farmer who owns the property all the way down to Flanders, then it could be developed and run all the way down to Flanders.
From M50 to Flanders. And then in Charlotte, in the city, from Lansing Road west to how far?
It ties into the actual rail line behind Citizens Elevator.
Okay. So would that put that liability for those two portions on the county or the Parks Department?
Well, the Parks Department would own from the Citizens Elevator all the way out to where it ends just shy of Flanders. So it would be ours and it would be our responsibility.
Right, that would be my concern with the ownership of that. I mean, a grant's a grant, and I know they're not gonna, the current owner probably isn't gonna divide those portions out for us. And then we talked about the salvage of the existing rail and the remaining railroad cars down there, and that would be entirely the responsibility of the current owner.
It's my understanding they want the rail because they own other railroads and they want to use it as parts for the other railroads that they have. And we would have no desire to allow them to leave the rail cars there. So
Right.
that would be part of the agreement too, is that those are.
Well, that is yet to be.
There's no way to remove those once you take up all the rails.
Well,
so,
not without a
yeah,
big
They'd have to be
crane.
removed now before,
Yeah.
before that. So, yeah.
Restaurant opportunity.
Yeah. And then that leaves us, once that, if that comes about, then it's up to us to develop the remainder of that trail from whatever point we choose over to the park.
Correct.
And I think we had discussion a long time ago with MDOT, and they were not open to a walking trail parallel to M50. Is that correct? Is that still what's going on?
MDOT's going to be part of the conversation this afternoon, so that's a question we can ask them. Just driving by it, visually looking at it, there probably is room, but if I were a parent with young children, I don't think I would want to walk them that way.
I agree 100%. But so that leaves us with a short portion of that trail that we may have to come up with a very creative solution for.
Correct.
So it's not a done deal, it's just in the works right now. So,
Right.
yeah, so I would support this. I think we need to go ahead with this. I'm not too keen on the price of it, but it is what it is at this point.
I would just like to add, I know that we all know, but this is so when the main entrance becomes off of Flanders. This is in the future. That I just want people, if they're still around watching, not to think that they're gonna have to come out by the granary and then walk the next 2 miles on M50 to get where the
Yeah,
current.
so, yeah, this would just be the first phase of a two-phase attempt to get to the park. So this gets us at least close. It gets us to M50, which is close. And then phase two, like Mr. DeRosa said, is figuring out how to get from there over to the park, to the new entrance that will be off Flanders.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we had a motion and a support. We got any further discussion?
I missed who supported.
Huh?
I missed who supported. Jeannie?
Yeah, Jeannie. You got it? Okay, so any further discussion? I see none, so all in favor, signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So the next item on the agenda, so I've been working with 3 different playground firms for designs and quotes. And we're ready to kind of present those designs to you guys for the playground at Fox. So that's what's in your packet. Those pages are 60 to 88. After having many conversations, I feel as though the company that we should be going with is Midstate Recreation. They offer the biggest scope of services. They've been extremely good to work with, and the designs that they've submitted are ADA accessible, and I think that they will provide the best outcome for all of the projects that we have coming up in the near future as far as playgrounds go, because we will be replacing more playgrounds this next budget season, and then as we develop Crandall, we will also have more playgrounds going in on that property. So if you look at the quotes, specifically for Midstate Recreation, we are currently over the initial budget for this playground project. That being said, when we reworked the budget this past September, when the budget was initially approved, there was around $200,000 to $300,000 allocated for other playground projects in the parks system for this year. We didn't feel as though we needed to do all of the playgrounds in one go, so we picked 2 this year. It would be Fox and Lincoln Brick, and then more next year. So that being said, all of that money is still available to be moved over to the Fox Park Playground project. And that would only be around that 1,200, 586. And that would be covering the shaded area. So if you look at Midstate Recreation, their design, they have a shaded pavilion. We decided to put that in because with the past couple storms we've had at Fox Park, both of those trees that were in that area are damaged and are going to eventually die. So we wanted to provide patrons a place to get out of the sun while they're watching their kids on the playground.
So essentially, he's not over budget. He doesn't need a budget amendment. He just wants you to know he's over the amount that was allocated specifically for Fox Park. Ethan did not do the budget, his predecessor did, so he's working with a budget that was somebody else's, so.
Commissioner Toomey.
So I'm sorry, you keep saying you're recommending Mid-State. Are you recommending Mid-State or Sinclair? Because Sinclair's the only one with pictures, I think. Is that what you're referring to with the shaded area?
So the Mid-State PDF was too large to upload into the packet.
Oh.
I could not get it any smaller.
Okay. Got it. I was just confused because I was like, it looks like this is the only one with the I've seen the pavilion back there, so I was confused.
It's like one of those shade awnings where they put up like the 2x4s and then they strap like the awning with ropes across the top of it. It's really nice.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was looking at the correct quote. And the budget overrun on this, you said was how much?
$12,586.
Okay.
I got Commissioner Drosha, and then we'll go with Commissioner Prowright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ethan, where in relation to the lake and the driveway would this be constructed?
So it would be replacing the current playground that is at Fox Park over by the concession area. So that playground is currently out of compliance. I think it's like around 15 years old at this point. So it's in need of replacement. So this would be taking care of that. We would no longer be having the wood chips like we have there. We would be going with pour in place. So wheelchairs would be able to access it.
So this would be on the east side of the lake?
It would be on the west side of the
West side of the lake, where the current pavilion is, right at the top of the beach?
Yes.
Okay. And then what do we do? Didn't we tear out some toilets in Fox Park?
Yeah, on the east side, there were pit toilets that were removed this, I want to say, past spring.
What's our plan for replacing those?
Currently, we have 2 porta-johns in place on that side of the lake. We are still exploring whether or not we are going to replace that with an actual vault toilet, because per our strategic plan, eventually we will be putting in a paved trail around the pond. So it's kind of dependent on where we land on that.
Okay, and there are toilet facilities on the west side currently?
Yes.
Okay, so those don't need to be upgraded or anything?
No.
I just wondered if we were gonna do this as one giant project and just be done with it.
Yeah, no, right now we just need the playground, so.
Okay,
I don't
all right.
anticipate anything else.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Prowright.
Okay, so can you go back to that picture for the covered pavilion that you're talking about?
So because of the file size, that was not uploaded to the packet. If you would like, I can figure out how to get you.
I'm trying to get a visual. I know exactly where the bench is compared to the playground equipment, compared to the dead trees. So where are we, what kind of pavilion are we talking about?
So it's more like a shade awning. So you have the main pavilion where you have concession, you have bathrooms, and then north, there's the current playground. So this new playground and the shade structure would be replacing that current playground. The 2 trees that were damaged in the storm will be removed, and the playground will also include that in its footprint.
Are you still leaving the bench there?
We're putting in new benches.
But there's gonna be a bench there, right?
Yes, there will be benches, and there will also be some picnic tables.
Okay, because I'm one of them that sits on that bench under the tree.
So this is the,
You gotta wait for it.
Yep, there it is.
There you go.
so this is the design that we've gotten from Midstate Recreation. So as you can see, here's the beach.
I told you, it's a super big file, so.
Okay.
That's quite the rendering. See here. So
Does it come with a strange-looking AI-generated children?
That's not, that's not our.
Those are optional.
That's not even our Fox Park.
So
Actually, the sideboards.
So this is one of the elements that we really like. This is a ADA accessible merry-go-round, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
Gonna put that out in it?
yep. And then this is,
Oh,
this is
okay.
the awning that would be going in place of the trees that are coming out.
Okay, so it looks like you're putting 2 tables in, not a bunch, right?
Yes, 2 ADA accessible tables. But if we need to, we also have other tables that we can
Okay,
move around.
just checking. So that's up next to the building, right? Because I can see up here in the corner, there's like a,
Yeah, so that awning is is north of the building.
okay.
So here, let me go. So this is the pavilion over here and the bathrooms. This is where the current playground is. And then this is where the awning is.
Nice. Okay, just checking out. I'm out there every Sunday reading the paper. I'm with my friends.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Toomey, then DeRosa, then Hanson.
I just like to point out really quickly that I think it's hilarious when you hover the mouse over this image, it says AI-generated content, and I was kind of joking about the AI-generated children, but apparently that is what that is. So that's all I have to say.
Oh, okay, Commissioner DeRosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What determines compliance on playground equipment?
The state does. So
State does.
yeah, so there's requirements that you have to have as far as like how high a structure is, like what the fall risk is depending on how old a child is. There's also regulations about the type of surfaces that are underneath play equipment. So right now, all of our stuff is wood chips. We're trying to move more towards that pour in place because it lasts longer. It's rubberized, so there's more, it's safer as far as impact goes. And it's also ADA accessible, so.
Okay, so when they come in, state inspectors, independent of our Parks Department, will come into view our playground equipment and say, yes, it's good, no, it's bad.
I mean, it's not necessarily like when you have inspectors come in for a camp, but if someone were to get hurt on play equipment that is out of compliance, we would be liable for it.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, at what point do they schedule an inspection? Is it only after somebody gets hurt?
Usually, yes.
Really?
Yes.
That's not very proactive, is it?
Nope.
What's the lifespan expectancy of this playground equipment we're looking at?
That's a very good question. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I would imagine 10 to 15 years.
Okay. And then looking at these proposals right here, are these good baseline figures for us to determine playground equipment at our other parks, say Crandall? I mean, if we look at this, say it's $15,000, and we want 2 or 3 of these at Crandall, we'd be looking at $45,000, and that would be the assumption, or is that incorrect?
That's incorrect. I mean, it honestly depends on the elements that you're looking for in a playground. So with this one, we had 200,000 initially allocated. So that's what I told all of our firms going into this project. We have this amount of money. What can you do with this? Now, if we were putting in a playground at Crandall and we wanted this to be like completely ADA accessible, similar to what was just done at J.C. Park in Grand Ledge, now that would probably exceed that $200,000 because there are more intricate elements that might be going into the playground. There's more factors to consider from a design aspect. So no, we could not just say, I mean, we could if we wanted to, but it's really kind of circumstantial on what we want for each playground.
Okay, and this is gonna sound like an odd question, but when it comes to insurance liability on playground equipment, do we spend a lot more? How do they determine increases based on size and equipment for our insurance? And the only reason I ask that is because not only do we have the potential for more children there, but the other side of that is the vandalism aspect. We've had vandalism in our parks. And for some reason, new stuff attracts more vandalism. So what is our insurance liability on stuff like that? If you've got that question, maybe Controller's Office can answer that too, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we've had that discussion, but I mean, generally because we're self-insured, we have just an existing policy. So in some regards, I don't think it would be a premium risk for us unless it was obvious that like, hey, somebody got hurt, we did nothing about it. And we know through the claims process, like that we knew that we needed to fix it and we didn't. Like perhaps I can engage with MMRMA and ask them if this would like help save us money or anything like that if we went through and redid our playground equipment, not just here, but at the other parks. But I'm guessing probably, I wouldn't expect to get a discount. But we would have the benefit of, one, keeping our residents and their children safe, and then two, we pay the first, lot of money on any type of claim. So this is also maintenance for us because by being proactive about it, we're minimizing the risk of us paying out of pocket before MMRMA ever steps in to pay a dime.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Hanson.
One of the questions was already answered on the longevity of the equipment. What is going to be the cost for site preparation for each one of these different locations?
As far as demo goes, we'll be doing that in-house. But all other site preparation, that is all included in that quote. So the company will come in, they will grade the area, they will take all of the spoils and put that somewhere else in the park for our use later. And then they will handle cement, construction, equipment, everything. So that's included in your current quotes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, yes, Commissioner Perwright.
When you take down the old playground, is it because it's not safe? I have a reason. Is it because it's not safe?
No, I mean, you can go on it, like it's not like there's jagged pieces of metal sticking off of it, but it's lived its life.
I'm thinking of like these group daycare homes that we have. We're short of funds and we're short of daycare slots. And I was thinking that maybe some of those up to 12 kid group daycares running out of houses or something, and they're legal, they're state of Michigan licensed. Could they use anything like that as we move on?
I mean, whether or not we could sell this equipment, that's a question that I would probably ask, well, not Patricia, but someone that runs our MyBid account. That might be something that we could do, yeah.
Okay, I mean, I have a couple places in mind, but I'm saying if we just put it out through the 4 Cs or something, where all the licensed people gravitate to for their information and their trainings and stuff. I mean, why throw it in a pile if little kids can legally still get on it or it's safe?
I guess I would probably want to assess if we wouldn't want it, if there's any liability with us giving it to someone else to use if an injury happened, that type of a thing. Okay. But we could also look at if it's recyclable material or not and have that discussion with Jared too, depending on what it was. But
in the past, anytime we've had large amounts of scrap metal, we have been able to,
sell it.
You'd sell that. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that comes back in to support the park's budget.
Well, and Ben, then couldn't you just like decide how much the scrap metal will be worth? Probably Jared could say so. And then if it was legal, I'm thinking those are pretty nice playgrounds for somebody's big backyard with 12 kids every day.
I mean, but again, that's if we wouldn't be comfortable enough to use it because it doesn't meet state guidelines, that's the only hesitation for me would be to give it to somebody with 6 kids, and then 6 months down the road, somebody breaks an arm and all of a sudden it's back on the county's doorstep, if that makes sense. That'd be the only concern I'd have. I think if
We'd
we,
have to find out what our liability would be.
yeah,
I mean, we're into recycling.
I,
Recycling.
yeah,
Make some kids some happy.
yeah, okay. We'll look at it. I think there's a cost benefit. So if it's
Yeah.
only like $230 in scrap metal, and I'm just pulling a number out, right? To have a lawyer look at the liability on it might be $300. It's just a question of, is that what we want to use our resources? I administratively would probably be not, also because of that risk, but at the same point, if it's more money than that, we could revisit it. If it's closer to $1,200 or $1,500 and it's only $150 to have it evaluated, we could look at it.
I mean, look how many thousands we're spending on the next playground. You think that's really gonna happen? At those 12-kid daycares, they call them group homes.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay.
Okay.
I would imagine that the daycares probably are under the same licensing requirements as us.
Okay.
I think so, but
Well, they
we'll
just
look into it. We'll look into it.
Then they have regular metal swing
I
sets.
think, I think that's for discussion later.
Sounds good. We'll do more research and we'll come back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So, do I have a motion to accept the quote? So moved.
Support.
All right, I got a motion to support for the playground equipment at Fox Park. All in favor, signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, hearing none, you have your playground equipment.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much.
Yep.
Aiden, I want to talk to you though after on something else.
Okay, now we're moving on to Tri-County Office Aging Advisory Board appointment. We have 2 applications.
Yep, you have 2 applications. Both individuals were invited to attend today, but neither was available. So those are the 2 applications. The one is from December of last year, and then the other one is one Tri-County sent over of a person of interest that had contacted them.
Oh.
So the first one is the one from December, and then the second one is the one I received a couple weeks ago.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Toomey. And
I'd just like to say, shout out to Windsor Township. Both these folks are from Windsor. I do have the pleasure of knowing both of them, and they are both fantastic people that would be very qualified.
you're gonna choose one.
I know, but I'm just saying for the group, for the board, like they are both genuinely very great people that are involved.
Not
so.
gonna help you. You're
At the risk of losing votes, which one would you choose?
Claudine,
Whoa.
Commissioner Christensen.
Claudine, was one of these gals, was she at the prior meeting and spoke and appointed to something?
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So,
I'll make a comment on that because I'm seeing a reference from Ruth Pearson. And I know her and she also is on, she's one of our appointees on that.
so is that your motion?
The Wood one, yes, Jacqueline Wood, I would motion that
You-
we appoint her.
Okay, so I got a motion for, we'll just go with the last name Wood. Do I got a second?
Support.
All right, so we got a motion to support. I see that there's one commissioner on our board that is trying to hide at the moment, but that's all right.
I think they're both great. I'm agnostic, and I'm happy that our 2 commissioners here feel.
Not gonna save you. Not gonna save you. Not gonna save you. It's on camera. All right, so do we have any further discussion on this appointment? All right, here none. Then all in favor of selecting candidate Wood for this appointment, signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that candidate is now appointed. Well,
It'll go to the.
it'll go to the full board, but it's moved to the full board. Okay, so I'm going to look up and see if there's anybody, but there's nobody in this room that's lasted this whole meeting besides the commissioners, which we actually lost a commissioner during the meeting, so that tells you how eventful this meeting was.
I feel like we're back in budget negotiations.
It got pretty close, so, all right. Seeing no public comment, because there's no public, I would like to adjourn until next month.
Support.
So late to work.
Thank you.